Or gather around, freaks. Some weird goopy pages have fallen out of the grimoire and are festering. One has a weird blonde kid on it, and he's got red glowy eyes, I think. Ugh. It's probably fun. So gather around the internet campfire and gather around the internet radio, because it's time again for... Hey, did you see this one?
With its covers tightly sealed and nightmares lurking within, the ancient book stirs ominously, whispering of unspeakable horrors and twisted sacrifices that have plagued the brave souls who dared to peek inside. But beware, for one of our sinister hosts has made a ghastly discovery. As the yellow pages were last turned, a malevolent truth unraveled. Pages are missing, each one leading to a dark realm far more terrifying than the tome itself. A place where madness reigns, monstrous abominations lurk, and mayhem consumes all who venture too deeply. This chilling revelation serves as a stark reminder that monsters manifest in a myriad of forms. And Hey, Did You See This One? Invites you to brave the darkest corners of mind, matter, and mystery in search of the Grimoire of Familiar Killers. Lost Pages.
Get the devil on the phone. Wow.
I found the blood. I found the blood.
It looked awesome. Hey, did you see this one?
I've been looking for that blood for a long time. I misplaced it. I misplaced my blood, but I found it today.
Put his blood on it. Welcome to Hey, did you see this one? The weekly review, reaction, roundtable discussion podcast where we just have to ask the question, hey, did you see this one? On this show, we take a film and completely pull it apart, leave no stone unturned, and friggin' just talk about it until there's nothing else to talk about. We are your co-hosts. I am Jason, Village of the Damned, Jason R. Phillips, joined as always by Stephen Boba Blackfly Waters. No pun this week. and returning to the show for I think the 6th or 7th time, definitely in the Hall of Fame. It's Ben Mason. He's back. Look at him.
Oh God!
Oh, hello.
Look at him.
I'm trying to find the clapping button, but I forgot where it is. Oh, here it is.
Ben Mason, everybody.
One day I'll remember that I have a job on this show.
Your job is to say more words than the average person. Listen, it is the summertime, or it's approaching rapidly the summertime, which means that we haven't talked about horror since the spring. And typically, the book, The Grimoire of Familiar Killers, will fall off the grand shelf that we have here at Hey Did You See This One Studio, and a bunch of papers will go flying out of it.
Yeah, really. It's called a bookcase, and it's inside of an arm. It's inside of a massive wardrobe, and it's covered in goo and ooze and wax, melted.
It
wax.
is melted wax, melted candles. It's like when you see it's like somebody's melted 4,000 candles, and like
I always forget how excited I get when we open the grimoire again. I usually I forget, and then once we open it, I get real happy. And then usually by the end of the lost pages, I'm like, shut this weirdo
up. Well, the thing is there's some links here. So we did our final John Carpenter month back in January, but we had one chapter left, which we decided to push down to our lost pages month, which is a month where it's like the grimoire, like the traditional grimoire, but it's one-off films. I know technically this is a remake, and technically, well, we'll get into. Are Children of the Corn and damn connected anyway?
No.
Okay. They're similar looking.
Inspired by, perhaps, but no.
Okay. No. Well, maybe a little bit. But it is also great to have Ben back, because this is probably the final time we're going to talk about John Carpenter for real this time, and have Ben come back. And
unless he miraculously comes out of retirement and makes another one last death thrall before he kicks it for real, but I don't think that's.
Oh, we can only hope.
Yeah.
Or we talk about, like, I think there's like a made for TV movie and an anthology with his name on it.
There's several movies we did not do, but we're not doing. We made rules, which is like no TV movie, right. None of that stuff.
At any rate,
yeah,
all of his major motion pictures, I'm actually glad we're ending on this one, because after things like Memoirs of the Invisible Man, this one looks like The Thing by comparison. So I had a good time with it. I'm glad to have Ben back for this. It feels special. I love this month as well. We're going a little bit different than we did the last time we did this month, with a couple of questionably horror movies, but we are here for it. So
I bent the rules in a way that made complete logical sense.
Yeah. B wanted to come back on and do Snakes on a Plane, and we said we have nowhere else.
Consider Piranhas 3D or Piranhas 2 or Jaws a horror movie, then you can consider Snakes on a Plane a horror movie. I rest.
But when B says I want to come back on the show, we say yes. How high?
How high? About 20,000 feet on a plane full of snakes.
Snakes. How do we get these snakes on this plane? But that's not what we're talking about this week. We're talking about Village of the Damned, John Carpenter's 1995 remake film. We have Ben on the show, and the first thing we have to do is hear from Zardoz and see if Zardoz is around. Zardoz?
Zardoz speaks to you. He demands you synopsize this film. Tell him how, why, who, what occurs in this film.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
It's time for a synopsis, bitch.
Oh, yeah. I guess technically it's a horror month, so we have to.
That we let Zardoz do that instead of him.
Exactly. I watched that 2010 piece of shit, Nightmare on Elm Street, this week to prepare for this episode. So
did you recognize David from this movie in that movie? Because
I didn't. Oh, he is. Is he one of the teens? I guess
yeah, he's like the main one, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Well. There you go.
I mean, to be able to identify a 20-year-old versus a 5-year-old is probably pretty difficult, I think.
Well, when we get into production talk and I open up the IMDb for this and I look at who's in it, I'm going to be like, wow, because a lot of these kids, they look familiar, but I couldn't possibly. Anyway, that's not this segment. This segment is the synopsis. So, Steve, do you want to hit us with the synopsis of this movie?
Yeah.
Pretty easy one.
So this movie is about a small town named Munchie. What's it called? I can't remember.
Muncham?
It's I want to say Munich, but that's not right. Anyway, it's a small town in fairly well isolated in the rest of sort of like Midwestern America. Or I guess it's close to the sea, so maybe it's just sort of like Northern California. Anyway, there's a mysterious force that enters the town through the credit sequence, which is a dark shadow that falls over the town and seems to sort of brush over all of the main players in this movie. There's not really like a main character in this movie. It's sort of it's like an ensemble cast where everybody sort of has business to take care of. But what happens is these people are having sort of a town fair, and after we're done meeting all of these individual characters one by one, including Superman and Luke Skywalker, we meet the next character of this movie, which is mystery. So much mystery. The entire town falls asleep simultaneously at the same time, but it's shortly revealed that it is within a very specific and tight radius. So if anybody enters that radius, they too fall asleep. And I think it's 4 hours pass. It's not a long time, but it's like they show you a clock twice, but I forgot to
It's enough time for the whole police military to get there and then immediately be like, oh,
Yeah.
they're waking back up.
I think it was 4 hours, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway,
From,
everybody
10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
was it 10 to 4? Okay, so it's much
Okay.
more than 4
That's
hours.
6 hours.
So everybody wakes up. A couple of casualties because, you know, if people fall asleep doing certain tasks, they might die, which happens. Oliver grills himself. There's some nice foreshadowing where they're like, oh, Oliver's cooking the hot dogs. I don't want burnt hot dogs. And then after they wake up, he's like on the grill, just smoking, basically a skeleton. And then there's a couple of car crashes, and one of the main characters' husbands, he crashes his truck and dies. And then shortly after that, it's revealed that 10 women in the town are pregnant. All of them find out individually, and they all have different reactions to this. Some of them are happy because they've been trying to get pregnant. Some of them are distraught because they've never had sex. There's one woman who's distraught because her husband has been away in Japan, and obviously he returns to find his wife pregnant. He thinks that she's been cheating on him. All that kind of, there's different layers of drama to each one of the individual pregnancies. We don't really get a close look at all 10, but we do realize that there are 10. And these babies are all born on the same day because Superman is the doctor of the town, and he discovers they all got pregnant during the blackout. When we all blacked out, yeah, they all got pregnant around that time. So that seems to be the sort of deciding factor here, that there's something weird going on. And then Kirstie Alley shows up. Look who's talking herself. And she decides, or I guess Weight Watchers, I don't know, whatever you know her from best. And she appears as like an FBI agent who is she knows more than she's letting on, but she loves Sherlock Holmes, I guess, Arthur Conan Doyle. And she basically is like watching this closely. And she's sort of like a almost too much character, right? There's like everybody's sort of normal, and then she's sort of up here in her own movie. She's in like an X-Files, you know, she's a Mulder and Scully wrapped in one. And then, you know, we get several time jumps through this movie. So we see the babies all being born on the same day, in which one of them dies and Kirstie Alley takes it away, which does become important as the children grow. But also when they're infants, there's a bunch of weird shit happening. Superman's wife, she boils her own hand and then jumps off a cliff shortly afterwards because her infant daughter essentially like mind commands her to do it. At least that's the inference. And I mean, it's so clear that that's what's happening. There's no way for you to think anything else other than that. And then we get another time jump to when all these kids, I believe they're supposed to be 10. You want to say 10? Let's say 10. I don't know the exact age that they're supposed to be, but they seem like they're 10.
I guess
8 or 10, yeah.
Yeah, but they're all they're all the same age, and it's clear that they all sort of mature differently. But one of them is almost sort of a runt of the litter, and there's 5 girls and 5 boys, but one of the babies died was a girl, so this boy doesn't have a partner that he's supposed to be paired with, and it's leading him to be different than the rest of these kids. They all have blonde hair and pale skin. This is exactly what I look like as a child, by the way. My parents thought you were albino until you were like 7. Jeez. and they're basically very creepy and weird, and they have no emotions. And throughout the movie, this kid David, the one outlier of these kids, begins to develop emotions and create bonds with not only his mother but Christopher Reeve's character, and they realize that these kids gotta go. The kids are causing all sorts of havoc, but they also have these plans that are laid down. You also are revealed by Kirstie Alley that this has happened multiple times over the course of the last few years in different parts of the world, and even more layers of this mystery are revealed. There's kind of an inference that it could be extraterrestrial. It's an influence that it could be extra dimensional. We don't know. There's not really a full written out answer for us. It's kind of left up to your imagination a little bit, but they do show you a fetus that looks like an alien. Like, why does it look like an alien? Anyway, the movie sort of comes to a boiling point where the entire town revolts against these kids and chaos ensues. But we'll talk about that when we get to that.
I like how you.
Fun. It's not great, but it's fun. It's a fun movie.
It feels like a John Carpenter movie. In my opinion, I like that you said "Look Who's Talking" and Weight Watchers.
I mean, she was like
Cheers.
a spokesperson.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
I have never watched a single episode of Cheers in my entire life, so I can't use Cheers.
Yeah. Also, Veronica's Closet, which I did watch as a kid.
I don't even know what that is.
It's she was the first person to be like, body positivity. I work for a lingerie magazine, and I am in real life in the tabloids.
Listen, Kirstie Alley was the spokesperson for Weight Watchers for like a decade. I remember her being on TV every day, being like, "Have you checked your points today?" Whatever.
Because the paparazzi kept taking pictures of her in bikinis, where she taking really bad pictures of her. Yeah. So her whole career in the 90s was just. I don't know how she survived.
You look at those photos now, and she just looks like a normal person.
She just looks like a normal person. Yeah. Also, those measurements are like what is in vogue now. It's like in the 90s, all the models were stick thin, and that's what the pop culture dictated was the norm. Yeah. And now it's you can look great at any weight. So I'm glad one thing has gotten better. Everything else is just as.
Well, you don't like the return of Nazis? They're back.
Well, we didn't have Nazis outright in the 90s, I suppose, but they're definitely
they were in garages and scared of regular people, and they were too afraid to show their faces. Now they're everywhere. Anyway,
they were like the character from Falling Down who lives in the basement and tries to.
All right, let's move on from this.
Falling Down is a great film. I watched it a couple weeks ago. And
Ben, we didn't tell you about our new segment called Nazi Talk.
Apparently.
And we just play a whole. Anyway, okay.
Where's that? Where are you going to end there, Jason? What was that sentence going to lead to? We just play.
We just play the whole speech.
Let's hear that jingle.
Yeah, Steve left. We can go into production talk, please.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed. Action!
Now, the first thing that I want to say about this is John Carpenter quite literally said, "Let's shoot this piece of shit," because even though this has the same kind of vibe as A Mouth of Madness, it's shot the same way, it's got similar horror tropes and vibes. He literally was he described the film as a contractual assignment and admitted he was not passionate about it, and that's from Wikipedia.
It shows.
There are elements of it.
It doesn't have the typical John Carpenter isms that you want, but he did at least stuff the cast with all of his faves. He brought back a bunch of people. Yeah,
Peter Jason is there.
If he's contractually obligated to make a piece of shit, he's at least going to make sure that his friends get paid for it. Let's bring in some of my pals.
He's the Adam Sandler of this time.
Always.
Yeah,
but Jason, you said this. It really felt like a John Carpenter film to you.
It did, yeah.
How?
Prince of Darkness. I kept thinking of Prince of Darkness, where there was a vat with a weird.
That's the one that it makes me feel like. I mean, not even just the story elements, but just sort of the vibe. I agree there, where it's he basically took this sort of flimsy premise and these weird ideas, and he went with the formula that he's used to. And I mean, the movie looks good, to say the very least. He leaves some nice creative angles, and everything is shot beautifully. And like even this shot behind us, like the special effects, though they're super minimal, like they're pretty effective. Like there's not really moments where I'm like, that looks so bad. Maybe the end shot, but even that isn't that terrible. Like the brick wall being sort of like slowly disintegrated, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like it's interesting and fun and visually stimulating.
And the over the top horror gore. The fucking score is phenomenal. The score is, I loved it. I think it's I don't know. I think it's kind of like good at points and then really, really bad at other points. Like
I agree.
There's moments where I'm like, this is great, and then there's other moments where I'm like, oh, maybe another pass. Maybe do another pass on that. That was kind of that made me laugh out loud in a bad way.
There's a part at the beginning where they're when Mark Hamill's talking for the first time in the church. There's a little like song that's playing behind him, and it was an earworm for me. I kept rewinding it to just listen to this part, which I did enjoy. I know what you're saying though. There is some stuff in it that is pretty minimal. It's pretty standard for. Like,
I think a lot of the minimal stuff was what was working for me. It was like
that's what you liked.
It was like the synthy sort of like music box stuff that I was like, okay, that's
what I liked.
I did not like it. It was too. It felt jokey. Like it felt like it was a goof, like something you would see in Reboot that is like meant to make you like kind of like pull you off of the tension rather than add to it. You know, it wasn't
more of a pastiche or like
it wasn't doing
reference to a genre.
It wasn't doing the job that it was meant to do in terms of like this movie, because there are some genuinely disturbing and freaky moments in this movie that are bolstered by the score, but then there's also moments that could have been much more disturbing that are weakened by the score, and I think a lot of it was that.
Yeah, it's like love it or hate it. And there are elements to love and hate about this movie. Yeah. Even if you loved it, you can't deny that there's this overwhelming feeling of laziness about the whole thing.
I don't know if I would say the whole thing, but most definitely it lingers throughout the whole thing. Like it's not ever present, because there are moments where I'm like, that was great, and then all of a sudden something hits you. They're like, that was absolutely terrible. You know, like I know he's got his standard cinematographer that he works with, but he also is like, you know, he chooses the shots a lot of the time himself, and you can tell when he's doing it, when he's not. Even something like The Ward, which we discussed last, it felt enough like John Carpenter to be able to say this is a John Carpenter movie, but there was a lot of stuff in there that you're like, he still knows how to set up a shot, but it's not in the same vein as something like Big Trouble or the LA or the Escape movies. But then you look at something like Ghosts of Mars, and it's just like he's just like, just point the camera at it, I don't give a fuck.
So I'll give you a little bit of insight on
We're gonna make a lot of fading back and forth here anyway.
I'll give you a little bit of insight on that. What's interesting, I just learned that Dave Davies of the Kinks, John Carpenter worked on the score with Dave Davies of the Kinks, which is cool. That's actually surprising me, because this feels like there was some like song music in there and then like a standard John Carpenter score. I was expecting it not to be John Carpenter who was on the soundtrack, but it makes sense that he was probably like, oh, I get to work with somebody from the Kinks. That's pretty sick. I want to just rewind a little bit and just say that.
I mean, I think that's one of the big sort of moments in the credits. I don't know if you were paying attention to the credits, but like
I didn't watch the credits. No.
Oh no, I'm talking about the opening credits, not the end.
Oh,
because it's one of those sort of like they're trying to tell a story while the credits are playing at the same time, where it's like this entity is crossing the ocean from who God knows where or whatever. What?
They've done all of them.
We've literally done every single one. This is the last one. So yeah, that's like one of the big sort of like the soundtrack by, and then it like has John Carpenter's name and then Dave Davies' name underneath. Like it's a big deal. And I was like, who the fuck is Dave Davies? That was my.
He wrote My Sharona. So.
Oh, my favorite song
about underage girl. Listen, we can move on from this. I want to just back it up for 1 second. The budget for this movie was 22 million. It only did 9.4, so probably no sequel. However,
people weren't real jazzed up for the remake of Village of the Damned.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
When did the Corn come out? Is it close to this?
I want to say 82.
That's what I'm curious about. Also,
I'm guessing 80.
Seth. It says that Seth Meyers is in this movie on IMDb.
Maybe you should not believe everything you read. Is he one of the children?
Well, it says Trooper, which he would have. He's like 5 years older than us, so he would have been like 15 at the max.
He could have been one of those guys in a biohazard suit. I don't know.
Oh.
Like the Seth Meyers? Like, is there a picture of Seth Meyers' face?
Yeah, there's a picture of Seth Meyers' face. It's rest of cast listed alphabetically. He's uncredited as Trooper.
So he's one of the soldiers walking around. They probably just didn't show his face if he was too
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wild. He must be like 10 years older than us then. He must be almost 50. And he was like 17 or 18 getting his first film role. That's wild. Yeah, so just, I don't
know if I'd call it a film role. It's uncredited, credited as Trooper. Yeah.
The book, the story is based both off of the Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham, and of course, based off the 1960 film of the same name, Village of the Damned. And this is what I wanted to ask you guys during this segment. Is it a sister movie situation where Children of the Corn had come out and they were like, let's resurrect this thing that's similar?
No, because
is this a trope in horror in literature?
It's a trope you've seen a horror movie, right? Creepy children are in every fucking horror movie ever made. But like the idea, Children of the Corn is quite different. Like they're like a cult that lives in the corn of like hillbilly children that have psychic powers, just like every Stephen King child has psychic powers, but they use theirs for evil rather than good. Whereas this is sort of an otherworldly phenomenon that is quite disturbing. I mean, the premise of this is very disturbing. An entire town blacking out and then waking up, and a very specific amount of women being pregnant is fucked up. But yeah, it's not a sister movie. It's just they both have groups of children in them. I think
with glowy eyes.
With glowy eyes, yeah.
But they're not like all blonde and weird. This is specifically like this is directly related to the original film, and this is more of like an alien Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1960s driving movie.
They're all related, right? Like they have the doctors does a DNA test, and it's like they're all related. Also, this movie came out 11 years after Children of the Corn. It's not like they were like, we got to capitalize on this creepy kid bullshit. Like
84 and 95, yeah. Have either of you seen the original or the sequel, Children of the Damned?
I have seen the original. It was on TV when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. As we actually skipped over our brief histories, but I guess we can just kind of like envelope it into here. But like my whole thing with this was that I was too scared to watch it because it's freaky. Like the kids are freaky. Everything about them is scary. The lack of emotion. And it freaked me out more than something like Jason or Freddy Krueger. Even when I got to that point of being able to watch horror movies when I was around 12 or 13 and I was more comfortable and I was able to do it, this was still one that I'm like, no, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that they all got blonde hair and they're creepy blue eye or green eyes. I can't handle that shit. There was just something too extra about it that freaked me out. But now I watch it and I'm like, this is hilarious and kind of great. Yeah. Like I love certain parts of this movie that we'll get into when we start talking about it. But
well, Steve, let's do this. The only other thing I really wanted to mention is that the horror in this, like the gore in this movie is like over the top. It's very John Carpenter. Yeah. So if we want to just move to our brief histories, you can hit the thing and then Ben and I will serenade you with our brief histories.
A brief history.
Go ahead, Ben.
we couldn't understand you because you spoke too quickly. You sounded like you were at a fish tank.
I'm underwater. Why don't you go ahead, Ben, with your brief history?
I was aware of this movie since the day it came out on VHS. I remember seeing the box, and I immediately thought, this looks like complete and utter fucking bullshit. And I just never bothered watching it. And like I completely forgot this was a John Carpenter film. It's one of the few that I had just never watched. Yeah. And I saw it for the first time 2 days ago. And I'm so torn on this movie. Like I definitely have to give it another watch, but like it's a strong cast. Do they perform well? I mean, that's up to your own decision.
But... I mean, you look at stuff like Christopher Reeves is doing good. He's doing fine. Yeah. But then there's parts where it's like even he could not pull off that dialogue that they're trying to get him to squeeze out. You know, you're like, all right, even Superman can't do this, nobody can do it. Yeah.
And what a horrible final movie.
Glances
to do.
When like he can tell that like the girl's trying to read his thoughts and he's fighting it off. Like it's awful. It's absolutely awful.
I was watching it with Danny and I kept going.
Yeah. But
we had a good laugh.
I think if I had watched this when it came out, I would have loved it. And watching it now, I'm like, that's right. I forgot that Carpenter had a rough period in the 90s.
Where they were making him film things he didn't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Actual obligation. Jace, what about you, man? Like, what's your history with this movie?
I thought it was all Children of the Corn all the way down. But I wouldn't have been able to handle watching this in the 90s because of my fear of horror at the time. But I do very, very much remember seeing the cover to this film, but also thinking like, wow, that looks like a churned out straight to VHS piece of shit. Obviously, it was in theaters, but probably not for very long.
I don't think so.
Probably for like
I remember the marketing for this for
3 million on its opening weekend or something, like some nothing.
The theatrical run was half the runtime.
I remember being scared of like the television spots for this. Like it would come on, like Children of the Corn, or not Children of the Corn, the Village of the Damned. And then like it would be like their eyes glowing, and I'm like, oh my god, they have ghost powers. This is
in a world.
The devil is here. And I put it down and I never went back until this week because I had heard it was bad, and I listened to a couple of podcasts where they discussed it, and I was like, I'll check that out one day, and I just never did because there's so many other John Carpenter movies that I would rather watch anytime I'm like, I'll feel like watching a John Carpenter movie. Usually Big Trouble wins out, and then The Thing is a close second, or one of the escapes. Village of the Damned isn't even on the goddamn list. You know, Christine is going to win over Village of the Damned every time. Starman even. I watched Big Trouble last week just because I watch it every once in a while, and I often forget that he does like theme songs for his movies sometimes. And in Big Trouble, he's like, Big Trouble in China. You're like, oh my god, he's singing and everything. This is amazing. I love it. Village of the Damned. Imagine he did that for all his movies.
Village of the Damned.
He was like contractually obligated. Like, they all got blonde hair and green or red eyes. Yeah, it would have been good. Made the movie better, probably. But yeah, I didn't visit it, and I had no urge to. And now we're here, and we watched it, and now we get to talk about it. So I am excited to discuss it with you guys because I think there are some things worth talking about. Because it's so weird and it's so strange, and it is, you know, it's not a bad idea. It's just it wasn't executed as well as it could be.
My biggest mind blow of the whole movie is Kirstie Alley in a not comedic role and kind of being okay at it. That's the part that I couldn't get over. She's not terrible trying to do like a serious non-comedic role, which she's a comedian, right? Not a stand-up comedian, but a comedian actor. Right, so
I will fight you on the quality of her performance in this movie.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
All right, why don't we talk about the body of the freaking episode?
The body of the episode.
Listen, what's the movie? what's the fog opens very similarly, or has a similar vibe where there's just cliffs and long shots
the
of
coastal
rolling
town.
hills. That's what I got out of this a little bit at the start here, where we basically just see a lot of really cool shots. Very Halloween-y. The early Halloween movies have that too, where they just show
pronounced
shots.
Halloweener.
The Halloweeners. But essentially what happens after like a very long credit sequence of just rolling hills, I guess like a whisper mist comes through the town.
It's a shadow.
I was so curious about that.
It's a fucking shadow.
Is that how you read it? Like at the start where it comes and like changes the color of the house? It was a shadow?
It's literally a shadow moving across the ocean and then the ground and then over the road and then onto the house. Yeah, it's a shadow moving. It's like there's a cloud moving that you can't see. It's almost like it's the shadow of an alien spacecraft.
Oh,
like
interesting.
That's what I was, after I got through it, I'm like, maybe that was supposed to be like a slow moving interdimensional spacecraft or some shit.
The weird thing about that I found is like if this was intentional and it was like aliens or this is the spacecraft, which I also thought too, they have no fucking clue where they're going. They're just going turn left, right, like
they're just looking for an isolated town. Also, they got to do they have to measure it out. They have to be like, okay, so there is this many people in this radius. If we put our weird sleep ray down here to here, we're not going to accidentally hit half a town. We'll get everybody. We're going to get everybody. I think that's the idea.
I'm so interested in everything they didn't even bother talking about in this movie.
But like, I mean, the thing is like no one would know, right? So like if you knock out an entire town, then anybody going into that radius is going to pass out. Like we don't know how the women got impregnated, right? So the assumption is like they knocked everybody out for that amount of time. So there's probably an entire team of aliens walking around with like injectors and like this one's good, and they're like inseminating them. That's kind of the inference at the end where it's like what'd you call it, like xeno insemination or something weird like that, or
something like that.
Because the way that I interpreted it was more like more of an interdimensional thing, because the having a hazmat suit on and a mask doesn't block against being passed out. So when it passes through, I feel like they like paranormally got inseminated. That can be aliens as well. Obviously, you watch a bunch of aliens on stuff on this channel, and it ranges. Sometimes it's literally an alien shows up in front of you and something happens. But I felt like it was more like you get knocked out and the fertile people just were impregnated almost immaculately. That's how I sort of read it.
Well, I mean, that's what people in the movie are interpreting it as. But if they're knocked out for 6 hours, we don't see them for 6 hours. There could be a whole team of aliens down there doing alien business, just being like, "All right, we're good. Everybody good? Yep. You done over there, Jim? I'm done."
And this is exactly what I'm saying. The stuff that we're loving talking about right now is all of the shit they don't even really cover in the movie. It's like, how does this come to pass? It's not, this happened, here we are. You're like, well, what happened in the middle?
Yeah, but the movie doesn't.
I think that would have made a better film. Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
the movie doesn't.
Even if they went harder on the religion stuff, there's a little. It's kind of a religion slant. That's sort of how it's explained, because this town is like super religious. They go to church. Everybody goes to the church. It would have been better if it felt more like it's the devil. It's the devil, and that feels more John Carpenter almost too.
For the 90s, it doesn't feel super religious. It just feels regular religious. Like it doesn't feel like everybody in the town is like super Jesus. It just feels like this is the level of religion my family was when I was a kid, where they're like, you get baptized and you go to church on Sunday. Like that's the extent of it. That's kind of how it felt.
To your point about that, if they did delve deeper into the religious subtext of everything, I really do think your take on how it felt kind of like Prince of Darkness, this could have been a decent follow-up to that.
But that's what I was thinking of the whole time, especially that scene where the first time she's taken into the basement and you can just see the glow on their face. I was like, is it the same that? And was John Carpenter just like,
is it going to be a Prince of Darkness tube again?
Yeah, like in his own head, was he like
King of Darkness?
Only I know this. I, John Carpenter, the guy at the moment in the first 20 minutes of the movie. Only I know that this is actually a follow-up in that quadrilogy of those movies.
Yeah, but the idea that we all know now that he didn't give a fuck about this movie.
No, he doesn't care.
He wasn't thinking about any of that. Maybe he did one night. He got drunk and he's like, what if it's just a follow-up to Prince of Darkness? Let's just film it like it's a follow-up to Prince of Darkness, but never actually try and make that happen.
The problem is that it is a remake. If this was a new idea, then he can do whatever. But the fact that this is based off of existing IP and a book on top of that, it's like he just got picked to direct, and he needed his money to play NBA 2K95 or whatever game he was playing at the time.
But it's the exact same situation as The Thing. Originally a book and a remake of a film.
Yeah, but it feels so much more like he made it his own thing, and it's such a better source material.
Yeah. Well, I think that he probably
definitely.
He was probably more into the idea of The Thing, and like because he also changed The Thing significantly, like writing. You know, like it doesn't seem like he changed much of this.
But this seems like this is something that he really should have like really enjoyed and wanted to do with like his love of 50s and 60s sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Like this would have been the perfect like comeback story for John Carpenter, because like this came out the same year or a year before In the Mouth of Madness.
I think it's the same year, 94.
Same year. And like this should have been great.
I'm shocked to find out that he didn't like this because of I watched it, and then,
I have to say, like, John Carpenter doesn't just take movies because he's told he has to. It's like he probably wanted to do it, and then they stuck their fucking fingers in it too much, and he's like, I don't like this anymore. You guys are fucking with it so much that he loses the passion, and he just finishes it because he's contractually obligated to do it. Like, he's not going to just take a movie because he has to. He's going to do it because he wants to, and then, you know, as soon as too many producers and executive producers get in there just mucking things about, it makes you not want to do it. So I assume that that's what his meaning was when he was like, this was a journeyman job, I was paid, don't talk to me about it. I know it's bad. I lost the passion. Yeah.
Well, we meet Christopher Reeve, who plays Dr. Alan Chaffee, and his wife, who are very lovey-dovey. They're very much in love, and we meet Frank, and
he gets woken up by whispers.
Yeah,
which is freaky.
We meet Jill, which I didn't catch her name through the whole movie, but she's kind of like one of the other main characters. She becomes David's father or David's mother. Frank is her girlfriend or husband. And they're heading out in a truck. She's the principal of the school. They're talking about, they're talking about having kids. He's like a smoker, and he's like, I'll quit smoking when you want to have kids. And she's like, well, we talked about this. He's like, then I'll quit. And the town is setting up for some.
That's not what happens at all, but okay. You like rewrite
this
scene. No, it isn't. But I mean, it's more or less what happens where you like rewrote dialogue and added your own jaunty lines to it.
I did. That's what
we talked about this. That didn't happen. We talked about this.
I like this version more.
Yeah. The town's setting up for some sort of like a fall festival, I think, or a fair.
It's Frank just like a school. It's a school fair. That's why she's so she's so sort of anxious about it, is because she's just been made the principal of the school and she wants it to be really good. So she's kind of freaking out a little bit about all the details, but when she gets there, she starts being like, we need the helium, we need the balloons, and like Mark Hamill, by the way, really one of the hammiest actors that has ever lived. Like, he's an amazing voice actor. I love him in Star Wars, but anytime he's in anything, you might as well just like make a sandwich out of the scenery and take a bite.
My references are the Guyver and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Those completely normal and chill performance in Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh yeah,
where he plays
Cockknocker,
I believe.
He plays himself playing Cockknocker. Yeah. But there is that scene where Christopher Reeve and Frank are sort of talking about the situation. And the only reason I bring this up, it's kind of on whatever scene, John Carpenter is there on a payphone just for like a second, and he's like credited in this movie also with like a full name. So like,
yeah, he uses his.
I missed that.
He has a pseudonym that he uses. It's like something John Haight or something, or like Thomas Haight. What is his? I'll figure it out.
Which I thought was hilarious because it's clearly him. Because in the 90s, he had super long gray hair and he looks exactly what you imagine John Carpenter to look like. And I was like, was that it? Yep, that's him. He's even got like tinted shades on, like not fully shades, but like tinted glasses. He's such a weird, like noticeable human.
It took me a really long time to remember how to spell pseudonym. It's Frank Haight and
Rip
Frank
Haight.
Armitage. Yeah. Rip Haight. Yeah. Rip Haight and Frank Armitage are the two that he uses. But yeah, he never puts himself, anytime he's on screen, he never puts himself as John Carpenter. He just puts Rip Haight, which is, maybe it's because he does it when he like hates the movie. He's like, put me in. I'm going to be standing by the fucking booth. I'm going to make him pay.
And
which is awesome.
I would like to mention too that it seems like everybody overlooks Michael Paré in movies, and I think his role as Frank was awesome here. Like, I think he did a really good job. He was also one of the co-leads in Bad Moon, which is one of my favorite werewolf movies. But like, he shows up, and I think he just demands your attention when he's on screen, much more so than Christopher Reeve, to the point where I was wondering if they should have reversed those casting choices.
Like maybe, and also I thought when he dies, like in a few minutes, I was shocked that they killed this guy. I know exactly what you're saying.
Right?
He looks like an 80s or 90s leading man. I was going to say that about this movie too. Like, this is smack dab in 95, and a lot of movies coming out at this time don't feel like 80s schlock. This felt like a throwback in 95 to a movie from 1987. Like, I really got that, like, this feel. Kirstie Alley shows up and she's like a 90s woman, but everything else is 80s, and that was kind of the vibe I got from this.
He's definitely, that might have been intentional. It's also very much designed to be a rug pull. You know, you're supposed to think that he's going to be the main character of the movie, and then he unceremoniously or ceremoniously dies, like within minutes of you starting to like, this guy's pretty charming. He keeps saying, "How the hell are you?" to everybody he sees. Hey, how the hell are you? Hey, how the hell are you? Hey, how the hell are you?
Steven Seagal executive decision style.
Yeah. Well, right down to like, you know, back at the school, everything's normal. We see the maintenance guy like drinking liquor, and Frank drives out of the vicinity. And then I think he's unscathed, but he's coming back into town. And as he crosses over that line, he like, you know, goes into the fugue state or whatever and crashes directly into, I think, another truck, and it blows up. And I think the intention was supposed to be that since he's a smoker, it made it worse. I don't know if he was going to survive that either way, but I think the whole smoking thing, because he smokes when he's always smoking. And I thought that was intentional. Like, maybe he would have survived.
I'm sure
Probably not. It was a head-on collision with a stationary vehicle.
The explosions in this movie are
amazing.
Something to talk about.
Wild, yeah. Humongous.
When the fucking barn blows up at the end, I was like, that seems like too much.
Well, yeah, because we'll get to it eventually. But like when it like blows up in the middle, you're like, oh, that makes sense. And then the far end of the barn just explodes. You're like, what happened?
And then the front end of it blows up. You're like, wow, he put a lot of dynamite in there. He had 4 other briefcases we didn't know about before he went into the main room.
But can we all agree, at the very least, that this is a really interesting setup to a movie that may under-deliver to some, but like up until like the 15-minute mark, I'm in. I'm totally completely in.
Yeah. I think the movie kind of loses its way when we do the second time jump. I think is when you start to really kind of it just doesn't hold on to it doesn't, like, it sinks its teeth in, but it can't quite hold on. You know, we want it to, but nothing is as interesting as that first initial setup. And then the crazy baby stuff, and then as soon as the town is just existing with it, it just all feels very unrealistic and strange. Where you're like, everyone would move. They would give the kids to the government. They'd be like, take them away. Like, these kids are evil. What the fuck? Why didn't we abort when we had the chance?
Well, that's kind of the role of Kirstie Alley. She's like part of that like government, but she's also like this. She is the smoking man also, but also she's an epidemiologist. So she's just
her character makes no at all. No, like it doesn't make sense at all. But yeah, we everybody passes out. They don't go into a fugue state really. They literally just
just pass out.
And then Christopher Reeves shows up. Is it Reeve or Reeves? Is it Reeves? Reeve. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Reeves?
It was George Reeves as Superman. Christopher Reeve as Superman.
Right. Reeve. Yeah. Okay.
I like how I asked and you both said different answers.
I specifically looked it up.
I know Ben will know
it
for sure.
Confuses me every time.
Yeah. So he shows up and he sees all the chaos, I guess, at the border of this. We can assume it's a big circle, right? It's not a triangle or a square. We're gonna go ahead and assume it's a circle.
It's a pentagram.
We only know where this. Like,
so it's a circle.
Yeah, a pentagram is just a circle. Yeah,
unless the triangle or the anyway.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a dumb joke. Thanks, Ben.
So he shows up and there's some sort of like country bumpkin cop being like, oh,
literally the sheriff.
Is it the sheriff? You never see him again after this, which is, it seems like he's an out of town person. Like I'm
from the next town over.
Yeah, that's kind of, and they send in like
Fugue
a test.
County.
Yeah, from Fugue County. Everybody over there is in a fugue state. We're all disassociative and we love kung fu fighting each other at midnight. We got a bad werewolf problem too. This is the John Carpenter universe after all.
There's a guy stuck in a book.
Yeah. And 2 towns over from that, there's a killer car that everybody keeps falling in love with.
Across the county line, there's a mouth. It's madness.
It's a crazy mouth. Don't go.
It's a crazy mouth.
Yeah. So they send in like a test cop with a gas mask on and a rope tied around him. Wisely.
Classic.
I loved it. I loved everything about that.
I loved that so much.
I was having a difficult time pinning down, like, is this a man, a woman, or something other when the guy's going in? Because at first I was like, tits. I'm like, oh, those aren't tits. Are those tits? I can't tell. And then the hair was weird. I'm like, the hair is weird. The mask is making it look like curly locks. And I'm like, is that the whole time? I'm just trying to figure out if this is a man or a woman, and I couldn't. And then because as they walk out, I'm like, that looks like a lady butt. I'm like, if this is a man, this man has a very hourglass figure. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations.
Turns out it was a man. Yeah. He passes out and they yank him back. And you're kind of expecting him to wake up once he's back out of the line, but he doesn't. He's on the same timer, I guess, which makes it seem like a beam that if you get hit by it, you're out. This is one of those things where you're like, you can speculate forever on what it is, but it's not gas, obviously, but it's a radius of effect. But
I like beam. And I like the idea that it is a spaceship. That's why everything kind of goes shadowy.
But it's not just a beam, though, because it's on a timer. Because when you walk into it, you pass out, and then they pull you out, and you don't wake up. But then when all the cows and all the people start waking up, that guy wakes up, too. So it's like he gets affected by it, but he's only affected by it for the amount of time that everybody else was affected by it as well.
Did anyone notice during that, like, the school fair event thing when everyone starts waking up? And like the animals are also waking up. There's one dog that just doesn't.
One dog does not wake up.
Dead.
Yeah, no. Because that was a fake dog. It's the same fake dog they had in the road. That was not a real dog, guys. Or it was an actual dead dog that they just are like, just grab a real dead dog.
Okay. And
talk about practical effects.
Yeah.
John Carpenter's is a stuffed dog. Like they used it in the Thing as well.
This is my childhood dog.
Yeah. It was in the Thing, and they're like, okay, John. Fucking weird.
We exploded its face. You don't show its face.
Don't show its face.
We turned its face into a flower.
Buck
glory flower, buck flower. Oh my god.
Well, that's kind of what the thing is.
He was great in this, by the way.
Yeah.
Playing the exact same role he played in They Live, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I was like. He always plays a slurred mouth, hobo-esque man in all of Carpenter's movies. Yeah. He also just showed up to set slurred mouth. They just had to put him in the hobo clothes. Actually, no, they had to put him in coveralls. He showed up in hobo clothes.
He showed up naked.
Yeah. Okay, he's back. You were in They Live, right? Okay.
Buck showed up in a grocery bag again. It's like, all right, give me these coveralls.
Screaming at the sky.
Hey, I want my grocery bag back when I leave.
You just pay me with one bottle of liquor and I'll drink it through at the film. And he just takes a little hit of it.
They're like,
I just wanted
action. Buck, get up. Buck. He's just like he
just wasted
asleep on the floor. Yeah.
I wanted to just add to this scene before we move on though. Kirstie Alley shows up and she's doing like the X-Files thing. I think Christopher Reeve shows up there at this point as well to help investigate the whole situation. And the cop talks about how there's no chemical plant around.
He says there's nothing around that would cause. There's no nuclear power plant. There's no chemical plant. But he basically names everything that you could speculate that it would be caused by human beings.
That's right. Kirstie Alley's name is Susan Verner. And they make a whole to do
like Turner with a V. And like when she said that, I was like, yeah, thanks a lot. We know how to like, what do you need? Do you have to explain that a lot?
I was watching it in 480p, so I had to rewind it a couple times because I couldn't tell if it was V or
that's
V.
why you couldn't see the fucking shadow, you dildo.
No,
are you sure there was a shadow? Is that how you interpreted it?
Didn't look like a shadow to me. It looked
had to adjust my tracking.
Yeah, it looked like a bunch of pixels moving.
It looked like a color change. 480p looks fine. It's viewable.
I would like to ask, have either of you seen The Crazies?
Yes.
I have not, but
both
I know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. The original Romero and then the remake. This felt like a really half-assed attempt at recreating scenes from the Crazies to me. Especially with like the military coming in and like people in hazmat suits and like weird like special military and like segregating people and sectioning things off. It really felt like Carpenter trying to do Romero while not giving a shit at the same time. But it was weird. It was really weird.
Got things like E.T. and The Blob and other movies where they do that, and it seems like he's doing the same thing, but again, it just kind of seems a little bit lazy. Like he's not taking the time to make it spooky. They do have that one pretty successful jump scare where what's her name? Jill? Is that her name?
Yeah, Jill.
When she's in her house. Or no, not Jill, the younger woman, the one who falls asleep in the shower, I think it is. She comes out and she's looking around, she hears a noise, and then like a hazmat man comes around the corner. That's where you're introduced to the hazmat. But it's like it's almost sort of trying to do the thing in E.T., but the thing in E.T. is like the most horrifying. Even still now is even horrifying.
It messed me up as a kid. I couldn't I owned it on VHS and watched it exactly once because of that sequence where they take E.T. away. That's some fucking.
But it's like that versus this, which is like they're trying to do the same sort of thing, except E.T. they take their time with it, and it's drawn out. The lighting through the windows, the blinds and stuff. It's all extremely potent, powerful. Whereas this, it's just like, and she's like, "What was that noise?" And she like goes around the corner. And he's like, "Bah!" And you're like, "Oh, damn, got me." Yeah.
When they do start to reawaken, and we see some random stuff while they reawaken, and we mentioned the random dogs. Maintenance guy just wakes up and starts drinking again. The character you mentioned, a woman passed out next to her tub, which was flooding the house, and the other thing Steve mentioned earlier, where a guy, I guess, fell asleep on his grill and burned up completely. And I was like,
his name is Oliver. Pay some respect. They did proper foreshadowing for his death. They said he always burns the hot dogs, and he did. There are many hot dogs around him also burned.
That's amazing. And
I wrote this why that stuck out to me, where she's like, what are we making? It's like, Oliver's cooking hot dogs, and she's like, oh, he's gonna burn them. And I was like, that's such a weird thing to say. like she's not excited. She's really mad that this specific man is making them because he's going to burn them. And then I found out moments later, or not moments later, but about 10, 15 minutes later, that it was a funny joke. It was a funny joke
too. That's a good I watch film catch. Yeah. I've talked about this on the show. I'm more of a TV person. I'll notice little things like that in TV, but I'm still so fucking new when it comes to watching movies and connect it, like finding smoking guns like that, or
also
Schrodinger's loaded gun or whatever I said that
the second half of the movie. Yeah, Schrodinger's fucking.
One thing I found really strange when everybody's waking up, they show one shot of a street and there's like a car, like an old pony that's T-boned another car, but then there's like 30 people in the street just like climbing to their feet. Like, why are there so many people in the road?
Yeah. There's also a lot of cars.
And how did the car not hit anything?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of the cars didn't hit anything. They just like slowed down and stopped. Like when they passed out, I guess their foot came off the gas and they weren't going fast enough to do any damage. There's a car that's like T-boned into a tractor, and they're both just like hanging there. Also, a lot of the car doors are open and people are just hanging out of them. Like, I guess when they're passing out, they're like, "Gotta get out of my car!
Get out!"
Yeah, the heck.
That's a good point too. I did notice that. Maybe it was meant everybody's going to like the school fair, the school get together, like so they're all on their way.
And the only people who aren't there are either, it's like his wife is, I guess, a real estate agent because she's showing that house, so she's got work to do, but maybe she'll go to the fair afterwards. And he had to go out of town to, I don't know, be a doctor in the other town or something. I can't remember the exact reason he left, but and then. The one woman who's not at the fair is a depressed teenager. I guess she's supposed to be a teenager when she gets pregnant, and then like we do the time jump and she's supposed to be a full woman, but she's still mega depressed, I guess, because she lost the baby. Even though she's walking around in this town looking at all the babies that were born, and is she being like, "Oh, if only mine was around, it could also be part of this weird platinum blonde gang that telepathically forces people to do shit they don't want to do."
I imagine that have either of you seen the original 60s version of this movie?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier.
Well, I imagine it's
long time ago.
Yeah.
I imagine it's just exactly the same as this with all of the interesting stuff pulled out of it. Kind of like how Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 60s version, is kind of like.
I mean, it's considered a classic horror movie, but it's one of those ones that I watched it and I was, whatever. There's a lot of other horror movies from that era that are much better.
Yeah. Well, I picked up the double feature DVD of Village and Children, and I remember starting Village, and I don't remember if I finished it. I definitely didn't watch the follow up. So after this, I kind of want to go back and check them out.
I will be watching the original in the next couple of weeks.
Good,
yes,
compared to this.
Well, Tim, it's a black and white film. That's why I always kind of struggle. I watched the Little Shop of Horrors and then watched the 80s version, and both great. Like, both were great. Obviously, the newer one is better because it's just so over the top.
The original was a bet. It was a bet for, I think, Roger Corman to be able to make a movie in a weekend or something, and that's what the movie was. Yeah, it was the little.
Well, it's amazing. I loved it. I think it's a great film from this era. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers is something else I've seen. I haven't seen the 70s version, and I know that's a superior, like one of the seminal horror films. Yeah, I know. But I liked the original, and I just imagine that's why I keep thinking about this in the opposite way, where it's probably very similar, like beat for beat, and then they just subtract all the Carpenterisms out of it, if you will. Just it's made a certain way of the era, very like milk toast by comparison. But the problem is when you remake some epic legendary film, not everybody's gonna like it. I liked, like, spoilers for my final thoughts, I liked this movie.
I think it's fine. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Like, it's not terrible. We've done every single one of his movies, and I'll tell you right now, it's by far the worst one.
Worse than Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's by far worst from the worst one, is what I should say. Like, it is not the worst one at all. Yeah. fuck, I can't remember. I had a point that I was going to make, but I misspoke, and now my brain has scrambled.
Scrambling them up.
Terrible. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're at the point now where they're all basically waking up, right? And
yeah. So
Jill's confused.
They bring the truck through that Frank was in. She sees that the truck was destroyed, and that's sort of like the end of that act.
And she's like, he was probably smoking behind the wheel again.
Yeah.
I told him smoking was going to kill him.
Yeah. We get the funeral scene. The priest is a little heavy-handed on the we asked science. Science couldn't answer. So then we asked God.
This is why I will never allow an actual religious figure to any event that I ever do. because I don't want them to say some weird shit that's going to influence like an 8-year-old or something that's there.
What kind of events are you having?
Like a funeral or a wedding.
Okay.
We're here under the eyes of God.
Right. Yeah. I didn't recognize, like, I knew Mark Hamill was in this going into it, but I didn't really, that's the 480p of it all. Like I didn't realize until I read about here that was him, because he had a couple lines up to this point.
But you could see the shadow. Oh, okay. Yeah. You couldn't tell it was a human being's face.
I'm going to go back and watch it the next time I'm at your house, unless you rented it or downloaded it.
No, I found it.
I found it as wink. I found a wink. I found
it. I found a 1080 version. So
okay.
I could tell it was Mark Hamill's face.
I would have liked this movie more if I had seen it in 1080p.
Well,
and that's
I asked you if you needed it, and you said I found it on some Russian website.
It's true. I did
advertising injectable vodka to me, and I was like, "What? Crazy."
Billy. It's called like Billy. The next movie was Tremors 5 in a playlist.
Oh man.
I was like, man, I wish I was watching Tremors 5 right now.
This time on the moon. Tremors on the moon.
I hope so. I won't hit the title drop beat, but during this section,
like, truly this is the village of the damned.
Well, they talk about the book of the damned, and you know, she thinks that Kirstie thinks that the situation is happening may just be an unsolvable mystery, which is good, because that's kind of the lens we're watching all of this through anyway. Like, we've all had different interpretations of what has happened in this film with the people passing out right to the end, until we literally see an alien in a jar, I guess. But even still, it could be, you know.
But also, we don't know that it's because like none of them.
It's been in that jar for 10 years.
Yeah, it could just be pickled as fuck. That's the thing, is like none of them look like aliens.
True.
And
well, they kind of do.
They do at the end when they're like the glow happens.
Yeah, but they also look like the They Live aliens.
They did look like the They Live aliens. You're right. I was thinking.
Oh, gee, I wonder why.
I wonder why that could be. Maybe they are the They Live. Maybe this is a prequel to They Live.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually linking the universe of They Live and Prince of Darkness.
Yes.
Right.
Perfectly.
It's the bridge.
No notes. That's been the show for this week. We've solved
with a bit of the fog.
Yeah.
Yes, with a little bit of the fog.
Tiny bit of fog in there. I'm Robert Stack, and this is finally a solved mystery.
She does like Sherlock Holmes, and he likes religion.
I said at my TV as she started talking about it, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. She says, you need to, I can't remember what the line is completely, but she says, like, you need to read up on your Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes once said, what is it, like, once you remove all the impossible possibilities, whatever is left must be the truth, or whatever the line is.
Whatever remains must be the truth.
Yeah. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up, Kirstie Alley. You work for the goddamn FBI. She's like, I've only ever read Sherlock Holmes. I don't even know how to read anything but Sir Arthur.
I can't even read unless it's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
I found her so annoying throughout this entire thing.
But like that kind of shit makes me annoyed no matter what. Like what grown adult says that kind of shit? If you work for the, like it gives you insight into her character. It's like, oh, she probably got into Sherlock Holmes as a kid, and that's why she became this person that she is. But she's like a doctor, but she's also like a mystery solving doctor. Like, I don't know.
Here's a question for you though: if this role was played by, say, like Gillian Anderson instead of Kirstie Alley, do you think you would have been less harsh on that?
On the
with the same dialogue
thing?
Same dialogue. I think she was horribly miscast in this movie.
I think that any legitimate law enforcement person who quotes a fictional detective from like the 1800s, dumb. You shouldn't have that job.
Keep in mind though, this is 1995. Like, Jodie Foster says some real stupid shit in Silence of the Lambs, and that was what, 92?
Yeah.
Like, it was the time where like you had to wax poetic all the time if you're a government official or like a special force agent. Or
it makes you
like
seem more human, I guess.
Yeah. In 95, if we watched it, I think it would have been fine. But now it's one of the dumbest things you could ever say.
Yeah, because that's the kind of shit that you would put in like a kid's show. Like a children's show,
Well, it's the Sherlock Holmes was like when we were talking about Robin Hood when we watched Prince of Thieves, and we're like, Robin Hood was just part of our lexicon when we were a kid. Sherlock Holmes was one of those characters as well. That was just like our Roman Empire, essentially. Like we couldn't get away from it. It was just part of pop culture, like just media, which is so weird to think about how limited media was in the 90s to now, where I can see everything everywhere all at once all the time. Every single literary hero has been remade and recreated in every medium, and it's just so weird to think back to the 90s that they used this line of thought for this character when they could have just made her Mulder or Scully and it would have been fine. And I think if they rewrote the character, it would be more of like either I want to believe or this isn't happening. Kind of ironically, because X-Files had just sort of hit the ground running at this during 95, right? So you're right. I think it's dumb when
it is dumb.
An officer of the law or a special agent or an epidemiologist, I guess, which also is what she is. So stupid. Listen, when I said that, it caught me off guard that she was doing this role. I thought that she was good in the way that, I'm not going to backpedal what I said because I still stand by this. I was expecting her for her to ham it up the whole time. And it was hammy, but she played more seriously than I knew that she could do. So that's basically what I was trying to say about Kirstie Alley. It really surprised me that she didn't be like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I was on Cheers, I'm literally in sitcoms right now on NBC.
I mean, she was in lots of serious stuff too. Like she was just, she gets like, I think she's like a dramatic actor, right? Or like an actor that is a jack of all trades in the sense that you can put her into anything. Like, I don't think there was anything really wrong with her performance, to the point that like, she's charming enough, but like it just felt wrong. But I did like her interactions with the kids because she's kind of got the same level of a very human level of snark.
Talent.
Like you almost expect her to like give the finger. Remember that part where she's like, children, and then she like as she's walking away, she like looks at them. You almost expect her to full on give them the finger as she's walking away. I'm like,
I thought she was going to end up in cahoots with them or something. Like she was going to be the all of their mother.
That interaction between her and Maya, I'm like, Kirstie Alley's dead and Maya's killing her. I know this is what's happening. This movie, I know it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be brutal. And you know what? It was brutal, but it wasn't nearly as brutal as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, they should have showed it. So Jill is pregnant because she's sick and it's the morning, and she's like, "But I've been sick in the morning a lot." Same with Melanie. That's the teen. Even though I'm realizing who Melanie is now. She's 30, playing like a teen. She's like the youngest.
Time jumps in this movie.
I know.
We gotta a break. You can't cast an actual teenager because like then it would be awkward when she's an adult, but also not really an important character at all.
Right. what's his face? Ben, who's played by the guy that looks like Meatloaf from all the John Carpenter films.
Yeah.
Peter Jason, he returns home. There's like a
Name's
party
Beeflo.
happening for his return home, I think. And
Yep.
I wrote, Ben reminds me of Orson Welles. And he's just sitting and
I
brooding.
mean, yeah,
definitely.
the beard and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the
Ah!
sign in the window,
Right.
the welcome home Ben. I'm like, I can get behind this character just fine.
Yeah. Oh, why Ben? Why Ben?
I don't-
Ben of the
I
show,
don't know.
who also was Salt and Pepper, and if you grew your hair out, you'd look exactly like him, probably. Less Meatloaf.
That's my
either.
goal
Also
now.
put on like at least 150.
Yeah.
I'm working
You'll put a
on it.
little
Don't
bit
worry.
I'm almost there. You're trying to beef up to Orson Welles level of obesity. You'd be like,
We can
French champagne.
French champagne.
You want me to just say anything? No, Orson. Can you say the lines? That's a video that we
Want me to
never
do
play
this
on the
as
show. Why don't you have that?
Unicron?
Why do you always have weird shit? Not that. Give me
'Cause I'm
that.
weird.
really.
I'll play that in its entirety next week at the beginning.
Ah,
It's very funny.
The funniest part about that is that at the very end of it, in a lot of the cuts, they play the actual commercial, and it looks completely fine. Like they like put it together, and it looks totally fine. You're like, oh man.
There's a
You
couple
did
other videos that remind me that it's like "Fuck It, We'll Do It Live," and then also the Winnebago Man. All three of those videos.
Oh my
all
god.
hit the internet at the same time, and they all have the
Yeah.
same energy.
Yeah. Except the
Um,
Orson one is completely harmless. You just realize that he's like a weird drunk.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't being particularly rude to anybody. He was
No.
just so drunk.
And hilarious. And he'd been in the biz for fucking 30 years
The
or
end
40
of his
years at
life,
that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just
like in the
done with
80s, and
life
he-
in general.
Yeah.
They paid
Um,
him in champagne. I've been drinking this in my dressing room all morning. What do you need me to say? What? Champagne? Oh, all right.
So
Sorry.
it's fine. That's kind of one of the linchpins of this program. Let me find where Alan and his wife.
Orson Welles impression, I think.
I think you should, because I think you could nail it because you have it a little bit
I have
already.
one in the back of my fourth. Yeah, you can. I
Yeah.
have one. I've got one. I could work on it.
And
Next
also,
week.
it's a really funny. That commercial specifically is old internet, and it's very funny.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not particularly like offensive. He's just holding up production because he's 65
Yeah.
and a lush.
Well, the guy who plays Orson Welles in Ed Wood, he's the guy who does like the voice for like Pinky and the Brain and stuff. Because like Pinky and the Brain's voice is more or less just like an Orson Welles impression, and it's like that's one of those voices that I've been emulating since I was a kid. So I think I can unlock it, guys. I can unlock the key.
Absolutely. That's interesting. Warner Brothers loves using existing characters. What's up, Doc? Anyway, listen. Alan and his wife are also pregnant. Well, because Bugs Bunny. The reason why
I was just gonna say, I think sometimes you just say things just to fill that dead space of air. What was that?
There's that thing where Bugs Bunny is based off of one of those old school actors, and the "What's Up, Doc" with the carrot is like from a movie that this actor did. But for some reason, people think rabbits love carrots because Bugs Bunny does the "What's Up, Doc."
Because he
A little
uses
bit of trivia for it.
cigar because he can.
Yeah.
I always thought it was Groucho Marx in the cigar.
No, it's an actor from.
I think that it's an amalgamation, guys. I think it's. I mean, Frank Azaria does the same thing, right? Where he's like, all of my characters in The Simpsons are just bad impressions of characters I couldn't do well, and that's how you make a good character. Is like,
Oh yeah, you're right.
try and do an impersonation of somebody, and you can't quite do it. Well, guess what? Now you have an original voice. I think the guy who does Winnie the Pooh says the same thing. Where it's like,
Believed
you
to be
can do
inspired by Clark Gable.
Clark
Yeah.
Gable.
And it's from a specific
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
What an interesting fact.
And all of the Warner Brothers like cartoon characters are all based off of 60s actors, 50s and 60s actors.
It happened one night.
Yeah, and he literally is like, "What's up, Doc?"
Meh.
Meh. And it is Clark Gable. You're right. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Nope.
Yep. Okay, listen, that's enough Clark Gable and Orson Welles talk. We're in 2025. We're talking about a movie that's 30 years old. Children of the Corn. Nope. Village of the Damned.
That was it.
I made a note
for
here.
Gable Corner.
I made a note here that are Children of the Corn and Village of the Damned relate? The kids the same, but they're not, because we talked about that. It's more of a cult versus like paranormal alien stuff. Frank's teacher wife also pregnant. That's Jill. There are a lot of pregnancies, though. This might be from the event. It's obviously from the event, Jason, from the past.
Yes, come on now.
They all date to the blackout, says the doctor, says Alan. There's a town hall rabble that think the babies will come out deformed, but there are no abnormalities, says Alan.
Just one lady
doctor.
thinks that. Just one
Right.
lady stands there. They're gonna be deformed, and you know what? This lady not even pregnant. What the fuck, lady? Sit down, lady.
Is she also
jealous.
the woman who starts
Envious.
starts the mob? Is that the same woman?
No, the wife of Mark Hamill is the one that starts them off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Werner tells the people that if they decide to have the kids, they'll all be given $3,000 or free abortions. Nobody takes the
We're gonna give you free abortions or $3,000 a month for the rest of your life, I think is what they said. And then the guy's like, "What about if your wife and your daughter's pregnant?" And then she's like, "Well, then you'll get $6,000."
That'll be $6,000, you fucking country moron.
This guy was like trying to figure out a way to get somebody else pregnant. He's like, "How do I get one more?"
What if I'm also pregnant? I'm definitely pregnant. Look at my belly.
My breasts
Sir,
feel
you
like
just
they're
drank-
full of.
Yeah.
Did
You just
anybody
drank beer
find
for
it
the last
weird
30
that
years?
everyone just decided to have the baby? Or was there something I missed there? Because I found it really strange that like
They have
all agreed to do it.
dreams.
Think
Most
about
people
how-
I know
Well,
I
that's-
think would be like, yeah, I don't know.
That's how the
I don't
scene
know about that one.
ends. So they go home that night and they all have the same dream of them
Listen, you and
becoming.
the back of that
Yeah.
other nurse's head. That she's like, "They're gonna keep them," and she's like, "What? All of them? Are you
Yeah,
serious?"
exactly.
And then she's like, "Yeah," and then the nurse goes, "Why?" Like, she says it in such a concerned tone, like, "Why would they ever do that?" Like, imagine
But
you fell
also-
asleep for 6 hours and woke up pregnant. Why would you keep the baby?
Why also
Yeah, it's
think
never happened
about
to me again.
$3,000 in 1995? That's a lot of money.
I don't think that that's the reason that any of them kept the baby. I think that the reason they kept the baby is because of the magical dream that they had, where they're
Yeah.
standing in a weird, cloudy, heavenly space in white dresses, looking up into the heavens, going, "Ooh," rubbing their bellies. They all had the same dream, and it seemed like it was blissful or whatever.
I thought that dream they were going to all wake up
Jason,
just
in
pregnant.
case you were wondering, $3,000.95 is now worth $6,295.26.
Okay, so it's a lot of money, but not as much as I was
Keeping that baby.
Keep it.
How much does a baby eat? Like $20 worth of food a week?
I thought what was going to
7,000.
happen was they had this dream. They were all going to wake up more pregnant than they were when they went to sleep. But that's not what happens. We get a time jump.
Why
They
do
all
you
decide.
You thought it was
I don't
gonna
know, because
be
an
pregnancy?
alien impregnated them with vibes.
I
Is,
see. Okay.
is what I
I
thought
thought that
it
too.
was.
I really did.
Yeah.
Like advanced growth or something.
There's also like a moment coming up where there's a literal toddler and then the literal 6-year-old existing at the same time that they don't really address.
No,
we'll
they're
get to that
both
in a sec.
toddlers. Just one has more hair.
Well, one is a literal baby.
I thought that
One
too
is
until
like-
I saw them both in the same shot, and I was like, "Oh, they're both babies. They're both
Okay.
literal babies." One of them is
One is
just
just-
wearing a weird wig. The other one is bald.
Actually, fun fact, they bleached all these kids' hair for this film.
Well, the
Those are not wigs.
10-year-olds, not the infants.
Yeah, okay.
The one that you're thinking of, the one that kills Dr. Mom, That one is wearing a wig. It's very clearly, obviously a wig. It's like, it looks like doll hair. Like it's a wig.
But yes, they all decide to keep the babies. Pregnancy time jump. Did you notice that Verner is just like smoking cigarettes in the clinic?
Yeah, and she's like, "Hello, children." Oh wait, this is later. But remember, when the kids walk up to her and she's smoking a cigarette, and she's like, like basically blows it in their fucking face. I'm like, yes, fuck these stupid kids.
And then so many women got pregnant. They all have their babies at the same time. Ben comes back and he's like, "Oh, clearly this is you didn't get knocked up by a gentleman suitor. You got knocked up by Jesus, baby." And then, that's kind of heartwarming for a second. Bathtub woman has issues and has a stillborn. I call her bathtub woman because she's the one that passed out next to the full bathtub.
Can't remember her name.
It's probably Is it Melanie?
Yeah, it's Melanie.
Yeah. Melanie, bathtub woman. She has a stillborn, and I was like, that's going to be a problem. These kids are going to wonder where their brother is or sister. I guess it's sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is sister.
The priest asks Verner about it, and she says she takes the baby. She's like, "Where's the baby?" She took it for an autopsy, but didn't want the other mothers to see. I was like, that's a bad idea. You're probably just going to put it in some sort of blue ooze in a tube in a basement.
Yeah.
So when I watched this, I was like, is the baby actually dead? Did she just kidnap the baby? Is there going to be like a scene now?
I was wondering,
like a baby in a basement, or like a 10-year-old that they've been raising by the government or some shit. But
I assumed it was going to be let's dissect this child now and see what's going on with it.
See, I wasn't sure, but the thing I was most unsure of was whether or not the baby was dead for real when it was birthed. Her body language and her facial expressions and the way she delivers the news, and the fact that the baby is making absolutely no sound, made me be like, okay, is it dead? I guess it's probably dead. But the fact that she ran to the back of that van and then came back in, I'm like, maybe the baby wasn't dead, but it was asphyxiated, and she could have saved it, but then she decided to just kill it to be able to do the autopsy. I don't know. This is one of those things that there's no clear answer to it. They don't address it again later. But
Verner also delivered that baby, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she delivers the baby. So it stands to reason that she wanted one for herself.
She doesn't deliver that baby like she planned it, because that woman goes into some sort of distressed birth and then she jumps in to help. She didn't cause the distressed birth.
She rushed to the ICU.
Yeah, and so it almost does seem that as soon as she saw that it was stillborn, or at very least in a state of unconsciousness that she could take advantage of, she took the baby and was like, "Sorry, it's stillborn, gotta go," and then ran to the back room where she had her van waiting. So I mean, you don't know. I wish that you did. But the movie there's an implication that maybe she killed the baby. The baby might have been unconscious but still alive, and she could have saved it if she really tried. But she took advantage of the situation to be able to get a specimen for herself by taking it to the back of the van and just there we go. Taking this to the clinic, the local clinic, where I'm gonna lock a basement door for a decade, I guess. I don't know what the fuck.
I'm letting that marinate for a second because it's so fucked up either way. If she stole a stillborn baby, that's messed up. But if she stole a baby clinging to its last breaths, that's messed up. If she stole an alive baby and just put it in that tube, it's all very horror. There's a lot of good horror stuff in this film, not for nothing. You know what I mean? It for all the bad that it does, it still has a lot of good. You feel this weird, gross empathy. I'm watching RoboCop 2 right now, and oh my god, what a masterpiece of a weird horror in places you don't expect.
Frank Miller directed that, I think, didn't he?
No.
Or did he just write it?
It's insane. And I haven't finished it yet, but I watched the first hour of it, and around the same time that I'm watching this.
Oh, Irving Kershner directed that. The director of Empire Strikes Back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, Frank Miller wrote it.
But
That's
when I'm watching horror nowadays, I also watched the Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 remake this week, and it's almost like too funny and stupid to be scary, and they missed the point entirely of Freddy Krueger in this weird opposite way. You know, like they remake these movies all the time, and even the like Child's Play remake, like fine, if you don't call it Chucky, it's great. There's horror in there, and this movie has a lot of good horror stuff. Sometimes it's, sometimes you have them bring up Arthur Conan Doyle, but
wait for the whole there.
But bringing the whole baby stuff, stealing the baby moment of this film really will stick with me, and has stuck with me since I saw it in that same kind of way.
Oh, you love it.
It's not because it's a baby. It's because of the mystery.
No, I agree. I think
implications.
Like, I said this earlier. Like the movie is pretty potent and powerful up until right around this point where we start to go through the time jump, and we're like, okay.
Well, is at this point where she runs off with that baby where I'm like, this is the X-Files, straight up.
Yes. I was thinking about,
and in a good way though too. It's not in a bad way. It's like this is a good episode of the X-Files we're watching right now. And then it turns into a bad episode of the Twilight Zone by the end. So
remake series.
Yeah.
Let's move on though from this.
Okay, point. So the priest baptizes all the babies. Verner and Alan talk about.
Did you guys notice how hard one of those babies is just staring right into the fucking lens of the camera that's panning across all the babies? It's so funny. I was watching it with Danny. I was like, that baby's looking at the camera. And I was like, that baby's still looking at the camera. And then as it's going, like the baby's about to get off screen, and the baby does one of these, like the baby wants to. That baby was born to be a star. He does not want to get away from the camera. It was probably the hardest I laughed in the whole movie. But and then by the time they get to the end of the babies, the last baby on the line goes like this. And like looks right at the camera and is staring at the camera. Like, nobody told me
that's on my other screen right now as you did that.
There's the sequence where Verner and Alan talk about the baby's features. Their hair is super soft, like more soft than it should be. They've got narrow fingernails, and they're all genetically similar. Implying
I couldn't figure out what narrow fingernails meant.
Well, the human fingernail is like pretty wide. I'm imagining some sort of like
cat nails or something.
Comes down to a point instead of being like flat and open. That's like an alien.
I mean, when she said narrow, I thought of 4 different options, and that was one of them. Like they're like skinnier or something. But then, anyway, I don't know. But she's also like the hair is shaped like a D and shit. I was like, what the heck?
Well, like at the follicle level. So when it comes out, it's almost like
I didn't mean that they all had hairstyles shaped like a D.
No, I know, but they're
hair, like,
I think it's meant to be like they've almost got feathers. Like could be angels, like biblically accurate angels.
I mean, one of them's named David.
Yeah. One of them's named David. Do you guys like Jesus?
What about Adam and Eve?
Well, see, that's another thing that came to mind. Also, Teen Jesus. Sorry, that's a reference to a show.
You mean Teen Angel?
No, Teen Jesus. Jesus. It's from Righteous Gemstone season 4. Listen,
this guy and his TV over here.
One baby can spell his own name, so we see the baby on the floor spilling out with blocks. He spells out David, which I thought was like,
funny if his name wasn't David. Also, when she comes in,
I thought he was gonna spell devil. I'm still on the Jesus
or Davel. She's like, oh my god, he spelled Davel. What does that mean? And then he flips it over and it rotates and it's an E, and she's like, ah! Oh my god.
Yes, correct.
I thought that was actually really interesting. I really dug that. I think I might be the only one that dug that. I was like, okay, this is the baby spelling his name.
Yeah. I mean, we're so inundated with this kind of thing where it's like I've seen this in 1 million movies and TV shows since I was a kid. So I already knew as soon as he's playing with lettered blocks, I'm like, he's gonna spell probably his name or something, right? And he does. So I wasn't blown away by it, but I did like it. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, it shows that these kids are, you know, maybe like 3-4 months old, and they're already like able to spell words before they can speak, which is quite frightening. I mean, like, even in real life, like you see those videos of like infants who can't walk or do anything, but they can talk, like have full conversations, and it's like actually disturbing, like how there's these little intelligent babies. It's the same vibe.
I like how they do like the massive jump though, because you see David spell his own name with blocks, and the next thing you're like, holy shit, this one does mind control.
Yeah, they don't have any
David spelling his name.
No,
they probably could have.
This is the confusing part for me. Just give me 1 second with this. This is what I was talking about earlier. When Jill is bringing the daughter to the house, she's like, so one is a little older, Alan's daughter. She looks freaky, has glowing eyes.
These are your notes.
Why is one a baby and one is like 6? That's what I'm saying.
This is the thing that you thought, but it's wearing a wig, Jason. It is still a baby wearing a wig. When they're next to each other, they are babies.
Really bad at time jumps.
Yes,
like
but
they'll like jump several months.
I thought that as well. I thought that one looked older as well until I saw them in the same shot, and I realized that they are both babies. They're both tiny little babies. Just one is shot close up and low, so it looks older in your brain because it's a low angle. So you're thinking that's a big baby, but really it's just a baby with a wig on.
Ben, but you're like if you're looking at the movie right now, you're on the scene we're talking about, right? David is literally a small baby, and the girl who puts her mother's arm, who she telekinetically puts the arm in the boiling soup, those are not those two children are not the same age.
I agree with you completely. I'm watching it right now, and no, they are not the same age.
I'm not saying they're the exact same age.
No, I'm talking 5 years difference.
One is not 6. That is a child that cannot speak.
No, that's definitely not 6.
Yeah, but as a baby,
there is
you see when he's in a hospital room,
difference in age.
You see when he's in the hospital room holding that same child, the one that caused her to put her hand in the boiling water. This is such a stupid conversation we're having right now. She's tiny.
Well,
she's a fucking baby.
It's not gonna be
it's true. It's just like I don't understand why we're even talking about it.
There's also that element of it. They're
supposed to be babies. All right.
Okay. So I agree with Steve that they are supposed to be
with
babies.
Us then.
But when I'm watching the movie at this point of the movie,
they're both babies. One's not 6 years old. He keeps saying 6. It's not 6 years old. It's not 6 years old.
But my point is when I'm watching this movie, I'm going, is there some sort of like time jump that has happened even in this last couple minutes of the film? But why are they showing a literal like tiny 1 foot baby and then a 2.5 foot baby at the same time?
I gotta say, I'm still saying that wig is doing a lot of the work for your brain there, because it is a wig. It is wearing a doll's wig, and the other one is bald. The other one has no hair at all.
Yes.
So you are thinking much more. That is also a huge. When she's carrying that thing, that's a big ass baby.
That's something I didn't really notice.
They probably should have put a wig on both of them. I will say that if they put a wig on both the kids, then maybe this conversation wouldn't be happening the same way. Anyway. We need to talk about the scene and not the fact
the kids can make you do stuff.
Yeah,
telekinetically.
So this is one of the things that I was talking.
The fully grown woman in the baby's chair makes Barbara put her arm in the soup. That was a little joke. Thank you. Thanks.
Yes. So my thing is like, it seems like these kids don't really fuck with you unless you fuck with them. Oh, I disappeared. And this is the one point that I'm like, did she give her food that was too hot and it pissed her off? Because when she throws the bowl of food on the floor, it is steaming. Like there's a lot of steam coming out.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good insight, actually. Yeah.
And then she comes out and she says, "Was the soup too hot?" And then she makes her put her hand in the boiling water to burn herself. So I think the soup was probably too hot, and she has no way of communicating that without being like, You want to know how hot this fucking soup is that you made me eat, lady? Stick your goddamn arm in it and tell me that that's safe to serve an infant.
But she lets Barb take her arm out and then makes her put the arm back in, which is so sadistic.
I don't think that she lets her. She has put it in her mind that she has to have her hand in the pot. And then when Barb pulls her hand out, the only thing she can think to do is, let me get my hand back in there. I'm not done yet. Which is, that is the most, I think that's probably the most disturbing part of the movie, because it genuinely freaked me out a little bit. Even like watching it this week, I was like, oh my God, that's so, having like no control over like something like that is terrifying. But I was more terrified for the other character walking in on somebody doing that and then trying to help them and then them immediately going back to doing it again.
But then in the hospital in the next scene, they're like, well, what happened? What is going on? And she can't, you can see on her face, she can't put into words like why she did it. And she starts to explain, and then she goes,
yeah,
you know,
it's because she doesn't want it. The way I read it is like she can't say it because she knows if she says it, she'll look insane. Like it's like, if I say this, they're gonna throw me in some kind of institution,
some sort of boiling pot of soup.
If you stuck your hand in a pot of boiling water and then we're in the hospital and they're like, why'd you do that? And you said, my baby made me do it. you're being institutionalized that hour. And there's no arguing with it. You're not even getting your bandages changed first.
That night we see Alan standing over the baby. I think the kid. I think that's young Mia. Did you say that's what the main
Maya? I think. Or
Maya.
Mara.
Okay.
Mara.
He looks visibly angry. I think he suspects something. And then that's that scene where Barbara goes to the edge of the cliff. Also, where are the railings? I know you can't rail off a whole cliffside, but it seems crazy that
on your property though, especially if you have a newborn. Maybe put some fences up.
Also, I guess it was kind of across a little road, but anyway, my point is like, what an insane place to live and like raise children. A baby, so many babies, so many children, so many teenagers, so many fully grown adults have probably gone over that cliff, but she fucking kills herself. She jumps over. And Alan basically kind of sees it, and they do this great thing where she's standing at the edge of the cliff and it's silent, and when she doesn't scream when she like falls off, she just goes over. That's chilling to me. The quiet.
It's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And then after that, John Carpenter left the set and said, "You guys do whatever you want. I got my shit in, brother." But so this
new
is
NBA 94 for the Super Nintendo.
NBA
Jam. I love it. Would be NBA Jam, like the first one in '95. I love our little trope on this show for John Carpenter month, where he just wants to play the newest and best basketball game. I love that. But there's a bit of a time jump. So to end this act, Verner gets interviewed and talks about the suicides happening, possibly because of the contact with the kids. She says national security wants to monitor for another year and not pull the plug and get these fucking nightmare children out of there. And then when we fast forward, it's almost like a post-apocalyptic situation where these kids are walking around in file and everybody's like,
the town looks like shit. There's like weeds.
The town's all fucked up.
All the shops are closed up for some reason.
It's like Jumanji.
Well, I mean, you got to assume that most of the town, it's like most of the town who didn't give birth to these kids probably left, right? Like these kids have probably been messing with everybody.
Hell out of there.
Yeah, I'm moving. Why'd you move your last town? Oh, there's a gang of platinum-haired little weirdos that were all born on the same day but are not related, but clearly are aliens or some shit. So
and we think that when they look at us with their glowy eyes, they make us do things, including kill ourselves. So we've decided to maybe move from that town. We went to the Mouth of Madness town, where it's kind of like you're in a book.
It was a bit better, but we all started to duplicate our irises.
Yeah,
it was really fucked
We
up.
moved from Midwich to Hobbs End.
Yeah.
Like a fresh start.
Yeah, we were thinking about moving somewhere else, but I read this really nice Sutter Kane novel, so I decided to settle down.
Oh, you read Sutter Kane?
Do you read Sutter Kane? Yeah.
Myra's like, I do not.
Speaking of which, that book's coming out in October, eh?
I'm sorry?
They're actually publishing In the Mouth of Madness as a novel by Sutter Kane.
That
By Sutter
seems like a
Kane?
bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie.
I'm gonna
In the
buy it.
Mouth
I'll
of
wait in
Madness.
line for it. I don't give a shit if my eyeballs duplicate like mummy style or whatever.
What if you're
Yeah,
across
mine
the
bleed
street
all
from
the
a
time
book-
already.
Yeah, what if you're across the street from a book signing and a guy with an axe starts attacking you because he's so incensed?
Isn't
that just downtown Toronto?
Yeah.
That is
Isn't-
kind of, yes, actually, you're right. The events of that film would not be uneventful.
We're gonna end
in
up at the
Toronto.
water purification plant over in like
That's in
Beach or whatever.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get
Really,
it.
all of like the events of In the Mouth of Madness are just like evening news in Toronto.
The East End, yeah.
Yeah, we're hanging out at
Yeah.
the Inn Center.
Yeah.
Anyway, the kids are 10 now, it looks like, and they look freaky. The town, like Steve said,
That's rude.
The town seems
They
to be
look completely normal.
If you can see in Steve's background, you can tell how normal they are.
This kid right here, I look a lot like this kid. When I was a kid.
Steve actually blends right in there.
No, this is here. Look, this is what it looks like.
Now you do yours.
I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
throw up a photo of Peter Jason right here.
Yeah.
I have to say that
My hair was this exact color
Seeing-
when I was a kid. Like I'm not even
seeing
joking.
these kids at this age, these are our villains at this point, and
Oh yeah.
they're awful.
They're
And the
so
thing
bad.
is, like, you'd never ever have children as a main character, whether it be protagonist or antagonist, if the movie's not for kids. Because now this movie has children main characters. It's not a kids movie, but adults can't identify with it, and I feel like it's a really muddled.
I think maybe
shit show of a
parents.
movie.
It's like a scary movie for parents, right?
Yeah, in the 60s. Now everyone's like, "The fuck is this?"
I would punt that kid across the room before he could mind control me. Just
Just
blindfold
like the
him. He
last
can't do it.
one
Yeah.
and the one before that.
I brought you into this world. I can send you back to whatever world you came
Yeah.
from, you little
I can
shit.
take you out of it.
I was scared of them when I was a kid, but again, just the idea of like a freaky pack of kids that can mind control you to jump off a building is
Yeah.
frightening to me. This movie in no way is frightening though now. Like there's a couple of moments that are unsettling for sure, like the arm boiling. And then later the janitor stuff is pretty it's
Yeah.
effective, but it's not, it's not frightening.
So if you watched the Treehorse of Horror back in I think 1995 or maybe 96, they do one called The Bloodening, which is basically Village of the Damned. The difference is this is what I thought this movie was going to be about, or in some way about. I thought that the kids were going to use, so in this Treehouse of Horror episode, they used the parents'
Radio.
like secrets against them, and they used the radio to like reveal all the stuff about
Is
them.
it a
So I
Treehouse
thought
of Horror? I thought it was just like a full episode.
it's is it?
I always thought it was a full episode. They were just like throwing the funky.
Well, the episode's called Wild Bards Can't Be Broken. So yeah, you're right.
I know.
So like maybe it's
I asked the question
that
to
is
be
a full
polite, but I
episode.
knew I was
No,
right.
You were right.
They
And I
turn
said
they
that
turn
you're-
like a Chief Wiggum like billboard into a radio signal, and they start giving away all the secrets of everybody in the town, and they keep giving away so many about Homer. And it's like they did me twice. And then it's like And then tune in tomorrow for plenty more about Homer Simpson. He's like, no, why they keep doing me? But they're so stupid that they don't realize it's their own children doing it. They think that they're freaky children of the corn kids.
Oh, it's because in the episode there's a gag that's a TV movie called The Blending. It's about creepy children who know and they get the idea from
they
that.
emulate it. But
Right.
they arrest the kids at one point. And he's like, you kids think that you're so hot. Well, you're going see how brave you are tomorrow. And then he looks at them and they're like, ring, and their eyes are all glowing. It's like, ah! And then he's like, ah, geez, Lou, because Lou's flashing the flashlight in their eyes, making it glow.
But they're like,
out of me.
you're going to take the handcuffs off of me now. Right. I always thought that was a Treehouse of Horror, but I watched that episode recently, so that's why it was top of mind. But
I just remember it being far too long to be a Treehouse of Horror. A Treehouse of Horror is a get in, get out tale, but that's like a whole thing.
Because they hole up in the billboard, and then
and they have a musical number at the end.
Yeah,
kids. Dun, 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 dun. I don't remember the words, but
you're right.
And it ends with all the children having a curfew, and then the adults also get a curfew, and then it's all the elderly people in the town being like, "Hey guys, stop kicking that can! My pills are in there."
Yes, that's right.
I like my autism comes in handy, Jason. I can remember every single second of The Simpsons.
My version of that is I can remember everything in my real life, in detail. So people are like,
okay.
No, I remember everything at a cosmic level.
I don't believe you do.
I do. So anyway, Verner knows about the kids, obviously, and knows that they can read thoughts. And when she's interacting with them, they kind of hint at the idea that some people can put up a mental shield almost and block the kids' thoughts.
I like this idea, and I also like the way it's implemented in the movie. I think it's kind of cool.
I like the way that it's implemented specifically for Alan, for Christopher Reeve. Yeah. In this moment, they don't show it. They're like, we're trying to read your thoughts, but you're blocking them from us.
Oh yeah, I think they're trying to not give away the prize that we get at the end, because I think it
turns out to be either a literal.
But the movie allows you to sort of envision it in your head first, where it's like, well, what would you do and how would you block it? Like, what do you think of 10 different things at the same time to try and confuse them, or would that make it too easy for them to pinpoint what you're actually thinking? Do you think of just random stuff? So it gives you a little bit of reprieve from the idea of it to just sort of stew on what you would do as a person trying to stop somebody else from invading your thoughts, which I think is pretty smart.
Why don't they just leave?
They're studying them. Well, Kirstie Alley is studying them. I mean, yes.
No, but everybody else just go.
That's the town is very junky because everybody.
Why don't they just leave?
There's an implication that the only people
you guys didn't have this town.
The entire fucking town is this family, and they're just subsisting off of government bringing food in and giving them $3,000
actually.
Yeah, it's just it's just a town of 9 blonde kids in Kirstie Alley.
Yeah. And they can't teach them. They're like, we can't teach the other kids because these fucking freaks learn everything at a hyperbolic they're somehow have learned the entire encyclopedia in 4 days.
They say at one point it's becoming dangerous for the other children, for these kids to stay in regular
just
school.
waiting to die.
Yeah, they killed every bully. Every bully that exists at Munchie High or whatever is dead. And it's like, oh shit, they died? I can't remember the town's called.
Witcham.
Yeah.
Midwich.
It's a really okay sandwich.
Sandwich is mid. Listen, we get a sequence that is just straight up horror. One of the kids is at the optometrist. The kid optometrist accidentally pokes her. All the kids
No, she doesn't poke her. What the fuck movie did you watch?
No, there's more to it. The optometrist
poke her. She puts acid in her eye.
I know. She pokes her in the eye by accident, and then the eyes start to glow, and then she pours acid in the kid's eye and burns the eye out. And then
that's not what happens, though. What happens is she's testing her eyes, and then her eyes do a weird thing, And she's like, holy shit. And she drops her eye drops. So when she puts them back into the thing, she grabs the wrong eye drop container fluid, sprays the kid in the eye again, and then she freaks out. She doesn't poke her in the eye. She squirts literal acid into her eye and then cleans it out. And then all the kids show up and make the lady pour acid into her eyes.
Into her own eyes.
Again, very stupid. This is one of those things where you're like, oh God, I know what's going to happen. But also I'm like, why have that acid there? Like,
right.
What is that close,
for?
like on...
I'm assuming it's for like dissolving cataracts or something, like some eye doctor thing that I've never heard of. But like, why have it there if the children are going to be getting their eyes tested, right?
Yeah.
But it's even labeled like danger, red. It's red danger eye juice. Don't put it in eyes unless the eyeballs are 80 years old. But anyway, she and then she squirts it in her own eye, and then we cut to, was it like Mark Hamill being like
the priest?
Yeah,
it was the children.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where like I'm gonna predict the line that he's gonna say like while we're watching it. He like looks over, and as he said it, I said it's the children. And I think he says something similar like it was the children.
Like, yes, I wrote it
almost perfectly quoted the movie as he said it. You could tell Mark Hamill projects what he's about to say when he says it. He like squints.
And there's also the bit where there's been horrible things happening with these kids, because at this moment it's like the optometrist situation was just listed as an accident. So like, I don't even know what to say about it. I think this has been going on for years. It must be like the kids will do some shit and then go and like mind meld with the person.
Yeah. But we also learned later that like she has witnessed this kind of shit for decades almost, right? She's like, yeah, this is nothing new. That's why she's so nonchalant about everything, right? Like she's not worried, because she's like, this is basically the same shit that always happens, but we're getting further than we did last time. Which you also kind of dry up all of the goodwill you have for that character, because you realize during that sort of like darkened boardroom conversation that like she's just studying, right? Like she's just there and she's using the town as like a rat maze, basically, where she's like, I'm using this as a scientific experiment. I know that these kids are killing people, but I'm going to let it continue because we need to learn more about it. And I'm asking for 1 more year's grant or whatever. And you're like, to what? Until when? Yeah, until they start making each other stab one another in the guts? The answer is
that's the crazy part about it. That was at the beginning of like when the age up.
Yeah.
Her in that like dark room asking like a shadowy board for more time.
Shadow government.
And we've already seen so many things happen. And she's an epidemiologist. Can I just pin down the idea that she deals with like
she's more than
pandemics?
She's more than that.
True.
She's been traveling around looking at colonies of phantom birthed alien children. She's not true. She's doing a little bit more than that.
We'll talk about that in a second. Are there any other regular kids in this whole film? I'm trying to remember
back. At the beginning, no. I'm sure there probably was like scenes written into this movie where there's like a bully that like ends up, because like you can't really show kids dying in like horrific ways unless they're like a weird possessed monster or something, unless the movie become like severely high rated, where it's like, no, we can't show that shit, which I get. So I wasn't like frothing for it or anything. Like, I want to see a bully try and bully these fucking kids, and like they make them, jump off the mountain too, or like walk into traffic or some shit.
Well, the reason I bring it up,
it was rated R, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you kill a kid and you're in NC-17 territory immediately.
The reason I bring it up is because
today maybe
this is the line where they say that the regular kids are freaked out and it's dangerous at school. So what Steve's saying, like, it's implied that Myra has been reverse bullying everybody, getting slightly bullied and then making them like walk into traffic.
What would be really funny though is if like they showed like the playground and like a ton of kids had like casts and like eye patches and like head wraps and shit.
Just a quick shot of a whole
arms and slings,
kids with like missing fingers and stuff, and it's like, oh my god, all the bullies been taken care of.
And I did write in my notes, and I do stand by this. This movie is surprisingly grounded for how ridiculous the situation is, just because the way it's filmed and the way that the story is presented is sort of one small thing happening in a series of small events. That's why we don't get that shot of them. They just say it's dangerous for the other kids, but we don't just show everybody in head wraps and slings, which I think would be great.
It would be far too funny, but like I still would have liked it.
I would have loved it. We're gonna put the halfway point. The son of them. David asks Jill about empathy, which is kind of a good scene where we start to learn that David has, because he doesn't have his pair. Also, we don't really know about any of that yet. Also, a twisted pair is DNA. So is this also just like a metaphor for DNA in some way?
Twisted pair is also what happened to me early in the episode when I went, ow!
He's talking about his testicles, folks.
No.
Bad on them. But the kids are on the move again. One falls out of line. I think that's David. I think the kid that asked about empathy, yes, David. They go to the graveyard. We have the graveyard scene where Melanie is there drinking alone because she's lost her kid. The kid sees a vision of her putting a gun in her mouth. So we also learn that I think these kids, and they don't really expand on this. It's just in this one moment.
Yeah,
they just see her. He just sees her put a gun in her mouth. But these kids also can see the future.
No, that's what she was thinking about. She was thinking about doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was seeing her thoughts, and her thoughts were, "I'm going to go home and blow my brains out," and that's
that's a much better point than what I made. The rest of the kids go to a red burn, and we see the priest.
Eyeball it. They're like, this looks like a good place. For like a real good place. Yeah. That's also where they found all these children living in there. Like, yeah.
Also the inspiration for the Tom Waits song.
Yeah.
This is sort of a sequence where they're going back and forth because they're finding this barn and the priest is talking about how the kids, like, they don't have individual souls. They share one spirit, one soul. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the congregation looks so pensive. They're just like, how is that possible? That's horrible. Alan finds the kid in the graveyard. He's looking for his stillborn sister kid.
Pair, yeah. I mean,
his pair.
She was meant to be with me or whatever. Is like, yeah. One of the dumbest lines in the whole movie is, it's like, what are they meant to be pairs? Were they pair off or something? It's like they literally walk down the street in pairs. like, yes. Yeah. You don't see that? Your kid is the only one that doesn't have one. They're always walking next to the same one. It's just one of those things where I'm like, is that meant for us? I mean, it must be meant for us as the audience to be trying to like piece things together, but like it is so obvious that you're like, did they need it? Yeah. Maybe audiences were confused in 1995, so they're like, we gotta have a couple of moments of dialogue here to explain what's so goddamn obvious. But I don't know.
Alan has his like bit of a heart-to-heart through all of this too with David, who is a literal 10-year-old, but they kind of relate to each other's loss because he lost his wife. And David holds his hand as they visit.
The thing is, I found it really impressive. David, the actor cast as David, did a surprisingly good job for a child actor, and I think if they got anyone weaker than that scene itself would have just fallen on its face. But
yeah, I can agree.
Having a kid hold their own with Christopher Reeve was pretty impressive. And it's probably one of the strongest scenes in the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that moment works quite well because it accomplishes all of its goals without really any questions afterwards, right? Like you understand that David has found a piece of empathy in the fact that he's never going to be able to get what he craves, which is like his other half that doesn't exist. And then he understands that loss is a devastating and emotional thing, and he's starting to feel emotions. And all you need is he grabs his hand to comfort him, right? Like that's pretty intense. It's he gets it, and you get that he that he gets it too, right?
It's like he's mourning the future he was supposed to have while standing next to his father figure, who is mourning the loss of what his life had always been. And it was just, I thought it was actually beautiful. It sounds really stupid for Village of the Damned, but that was a fucking beautiful scene. It was really good, really good.
Powerful,
it was very poetic.
And it also it improves a lot of other stuff in the movie beyond it. Like it makes everything else make sense. Without this scene, there's a ton of stuff that would make even less sense than it already makes. I think that this is probably, I think you're right. I think this is probably the best scene in the movie, and nobody even gets murdered horribly.
I know. It is. I think it is my favorite scene in the film. Is it the best one? Debatable. By far my favorite, though.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I liked the way that the whole graveyard was like framed too. Like it felt like it was meant to be an impactful scene, and the fact that you guys were impacted by it is it feels really good to hear, because I obviously was as well. And to see there's a really fun, interesting part where, like, right before he sees her envision herself literally blow her head off, she's like, I have nothing to lose. Yeah, you want to drink? You want a sip of this liquor bottle? Like, it's so like it all makes sense. And there's a lot of problems with this movie, but things that it does right, and that's John Carpenter through and through, I think are the shining light that makes me like this movie. And it kind of dims the rest of the stuff that doesn't work. Like for all the Mark Hamill stuff where he's chewing the scenery, there are scenes like this that do feel special, you know? And I agree with you guys. I thought this was a really good sequence.
Have either of you seen Needful Things?
Yeah, we did Needful Things on this very channel.
There you go. I found the hopelessness mixed with desperation in this town very reminiscent of Needful Things.
Yeah. I can see that.
And it's a specific feeling that I haven't really gotten in other films, but like everybody conveyed that emotion really well. So the more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking I actually like this more than I thought I did. Just a random thought to throw out there. Yeah.
Needful Things is good. It's hard to watch though, man. Sometimes I throw that on as like a chicken noodle soup movie, and I'm like, this is too intense.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
These people need their things so bad.
I forgot that there's like a whole sequence where you're just worried about a dog. I'm like, I can't handle this dog stuff right now.
Just wait for the sequel, Needless Things.
Useless.
And it's just like
it's the store slowly going under.
Yeah, it's just the bay.
All right.
That's good.
That fucking store opened in the 1600s or whatever. The 1800s, 1600s, right? No, 1800s got to be 1860s.
The company, not the store.
Right. The company, not the Hudson's Bay. Anyway, I fucked it up. Sorry, Ben. Listen, Alan talks to Jill about the situation. Yeah, this has been our show for this week. Again, the squad goes by. We see the old man, the drunk guy drinking. Alan takes the kids and teaches them. He decides that we have to take them to this. If they're going to live in this barn, I'm going to teach them in that barn.
The Hudson Bay Company was founded in 1670.
I told you.
I mean, you jumped back and forth a couple hundred years, but yeah, you did.
I said the 1600s, and I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
But I was reading about how far back that lineage goes, just from the fucking Shutter.
But you were also right, because the first department store was started in 1881 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Yeah. So you're kind of right on both points.
So they literally started as people hunting for furs.
Yeah, it was a fur trading company in Hudson Bay. You know,
yeah, in the literal Hudson Bay.
Yeah.
Jason, you were saying that that Alan decided he was going to teach the children if they're living in the barn, he's going to set up as like school and like teach them. Do you think it was needlessly decorated as a schoolroom? Because these kids are not your average children. They don't care if the alphabet's on the wall. Like David could spell his name at 2 months old.
Yeah. Who came up with that idea? Were they like, we need this to look like a school, or was for weeks Alan's going in there and putting up?
He's like, well, you need to know you need to know the alphabet. It's like we have
it has to be right. Everyone else
alphabet and every other alphabet on the planet Earth at this point. We know all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know letters that you.
Yeah, they all speak 37 languages at this point. Like,
yeah. It would have been great if there was a scene.
Although I do love Buckflower.
Yeah. Which we're almost there, where she asks him, because he's depressed now that his wife has been dead for about a decade, and she's the principal's trying to get him to come teach the kids, because she's like, they respect you, and he's like, they respect me? How could they respect me? I don't even respect myself, god damn it. I used to be Superman, and now I'm just man. Like wanders away sad or whatever.
And then like, Gene Hackman shows up and is like, I'll get you for this.
And
Hackman.
He says no, basically, and then eventually he agrees to teach them. But what is the linchpin there? Oh, it's David. It's David coming and holding his hand that makes him be like, you know what? Maybe I can teach them. I taught David empathy. Maybe I could teach all of them empathy. And he's like, tries to teach them about physiology at first. You guys want to learn about the eye? And this kid here. The one, this is me when I was 7, by the way. That's how I looked. My parents were terrified of me. I used to be like, the boy told me to put all the toys in the sink. And my parents were like, who's the boy? And I was like, the boy upstairs.
The boy in the attic.
Yeah.
We don't have an attic. That's do.
My invisible friend's name was the boy, and he lived upstairs, and he never left the upstairs. I don't remember him, but I assume he probably looked like this. Put the toys in the sink. Drown the toys. So he says, like, do you mean like how we see? Or what do you fucking mean by that, Doc? And his own daughter fucking cucks the situation and is like, although the eye is the window to the soul. And he's like, very good. I see you've been reading your Proverbs, but I was talking to Robert.
Yeah.
And he goes, Robert? And then Robert's like, the eye is the window to the soul, which, you know, we have been informed that she's the leader, I guess. And yes. I assume there's always a leader involved in these colonies, but Robert, I suppose, is meant to be her other, I guess. And what Jason said earlier about like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't know about that. Like, I think he's supposed to be the other, but it's weird if they're all pairing off and equal. You kind of think there'd be like 2 ruling members of this group of crazy alien interdimensional children.
Yeah,
but like
he clearly like is in a way, you know,
subservient for sure.
I wouldn't say subservient so much as like he waits until she gives approval, or like she's the thought and then he's the receptacle of the thought, where it's like she originates the thought, and it's almost like it disseminates through all of them. Like they're all sort of they're sharing the same thing, but he's next in line, and it kind of goes down the line until David, who is the last, and he gets sort
that
of
makes
like
sense.
What's left over.
The way that I understood it was because he wasn't paired off, he had the ability to think outside of them. Like I think that he was still part of that like almost like Christmas lights. If one
almost
Christmas
like the
light
string
is
was broken.
Yeah, so I kind of saw him as the broken Christmas light of the.
Well, that's sort of what we're talking about. Where she's the head. They call her the leader, right? And that's
what's confusing about this whole thing for me too, because if there is a leader, that means that she is the head of like the chimera.
That's
almost
literally what we're talking about right now. She's at the start, and then Robert is her second or whatever, right? So we're saying that maybe the thought processes that attach them all are disseminated down the line to the very back, and then David is the weakest because he's at the very end. He's getting the least amount of that connectivity. It would have been interesting to play around with that in some way. You know, like maybe the next ones up the line are more sympathetic to David, trying to be like, you can't question her like that, David. Don't you know? And it's like, I don't have another to share my thoughts with as powerfully as you guys do.
Well, how about this?
Theories.
You should have killed half of them when they were babies. They should, if they killed half of them as babies, if they killed one of each pair, then they just have like 8 good kids.
Jason, the government is trying to study them. The parents wanted them to be children, and they don't want to die. So who's gonna kill them? You're gonna go in there and clean up. You're the janitor, like, I'll get you fucking little bastards.
Yeah, that's the sequel, The Janitor. Jason murdering children.
He does like a Back to the Future 2 thing where he was there the whole time, but this time he knows to kill half of them.
Like, hindsight is 2020, but like you wouldn't know. And also I was gonna say Jamie Lee Curtis. Kirstie Alley gives them the option. All of them, it's like, if you want to terminate the children, you all absolutely have the option to do that, and we're not going to stop you. And none of them do.
But then
they all decide to keep it.
Well, I think it's what Jason brought up before, like the weird dream sequence they all had. I think it was Jason that brought it up. The weird dream sequence they all have about like being happy and pregnant, and like weird like white flowing dresses and whatnot. I think that was the in utero embryos like convincing them to have.
I thought that too, but either that or like the mothership is still floating around, you know, projecting images into their brains or something. But
and that works just as well, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but my thought it was like, if they're able to spell their name before they can speak, and if they're able to influence you to boil your own arm and stuff, there's absolutely a possibility that being in utero for like a couple of weeks, you're able to form some sort of like bond with the host to be like, everything in your power, keep me alive. You have to keep me alive, and like overwhelm their emotions. I think it would be cool to somehow explore that narratively and visually, but like, you know, I guess the visual narrative is like, you're having a beautiful dream in a dress that is so comfortable, and it's such nice clouds around you, and it's a very nice warm breeze.
It goes back to what I was saying before about how the most interesting parts of this movie are never discussed in the film.
Right.
Like the things that make it insanely interesting are just not addressed.
We're discussing
it's also kind of difficult to, like, I can't really, I mean, I'm sure if I thought about it for like, you know, more than 2 seconds, I could come up with an idea to somehow visualize a few cells speaking to a body through like visual language that would be kind of cool and interesting, and maybe amorphous enough that you can connect your own meaning to it. But it would be difficult. It would be difficult to like to convey that without people being like, what the fuck is going on? Like it not being like a David Lynch thing or something. Or you're like, what?
I just want to make a note that I kind of jumped us ahead. They aren't actually at the barn yet. Everything that's happened to this point.
No, we're not talking about the barn either. We're just talking in general about the kids right now. We're not.
No, I know, but I want to talk about what is happening. They are literally still in a school. Alan takes them and tries to have them in their own class, right? So everything that you're saying
about that a little bit when he's talking about let's study the eye. That's when you left and came back. We started talking about that.
So the only reason I bring that up is because it does. You were right. When they go to the barn in a minute, it is dressed up like a classroom. At this point, it's interesting to note that they're still in the classroom. And the maintenance guy comes in, and we get another like horror sequence that's very much akin to what you guys are talking about, where he comes in and he's like,
"I know for you, Jason. We didn't want to start talking about it till you got back." But
I know it. I know what you guys
before we talk about this, that we finish talking about the eyeball stuff, because
absolutely. Sorry,
they start talking about the eyeball stuff, and then she diverts the conversation into philosophy, And he's like, okay, well, we can talk about philosophy instead if you'd like. It's very important that we understand emotion and humanity in general. Yeah. And she shuts him down because she knows that none of these kids are going to be receptive or interested in this because they don't have emotions. At least only one does, David. The rest of them, no emotions whatsoever. They don't care about this kind of stuff. So her bringing up the idea of the eyes being the window to the soul is almost like her being like, fuck you. Like, we're not going to listen to you, and nobody here is going to listen to you. At least that's how I viewed it, right? Because like they're so like non-responsive to what it means to be human that like even the discussion of philosophy amongst them is like completely useless. And that's her way of saying to him, like, you're useless and this is not going to work.
And also, you look at me as a child, but I am a omnipotent being.
Also important to remember that like she's his daughter. Like she's at home with him every day, you know, like this is not like some strange kid that he's like, it is a strange kid, but it's a strange kid that lives in his house.
That's a really good point to note, because we just see these like time jumps and these like here's the next thing that happens in a story, but that's a really good way to look at it. Like this guy, Alan specifically, has been dealing with the head of this monstrous chimera for a decade. There's probably been so many little like you can make a TV show about all the horrible things that have probably happened in this town that led them to get to this point, that has them kind of at a we have nothing else. We're going to try to teach them on their own within the school because they're too dangerous. They're too dangerous to be around other kids. Like that's crazy. Like who knows what could have happened in that time? And we kind of discussed that with like that the shot of everybody in like in slings. But we have to understand that there comes a time when we have to understand like what these kids want or what this entity wants. And I don't think that's ever clear. I think that chaos is a huge part of what these kids like want.
No, I disagree completely.
You disagree with that?
Yeah.
What do you think that these kids like?
They want
what's their ultimate goal?
They want to create more colonies. They don't want to create chaos. They want to grow. Like their whole.
Is it like an assimilation thing ultimately?
I think that the only goal that they have is to spread, like a virus or like a superior being. They're going to take over. Like that's why they're here. They're not here to create chaos. They're here to basically, because they're kids, right? Like they know that once they reach adulthood, they'll be able to like probably influence and infiltrate like politics and take over the entire world and do the same thing in larger areas.
That's they live.
But also like just like Kirstie Alley is learning how to sort of differentiate the reasons why some colonies were successful and some weren't, and she wants to study is to figure out how to basically harness these abilities or understand them, whereas they're doing the same thing, right? Like the aliens, I assume they're aliens. I'm going to go ahead and just say they're aliens.
I assume they're aliens.
I'm going to say aliens as well.
Because when she goes through the revelation to Christopher Reeve that like, this has happened many times before, but all to a certain level of failure. This is the most successful that they've been, right? They've never been this successful before. And go ahead.
Why only 10 kids?
Well, they tried more.
And why only like at this one point? I know it happens like at random points throughout history in different areas of the world. Why not just do like fucking blanket?
Well, they did different amounts. Like she even says like this one was 20, this one was like, but it's always even. So it's always like there'll be pairs. The only thing that's the same is that there's pairs.
Of course.
So there's not like a set number. And it almost seems like they tried with larger numbers and the larger number resulted in a more catastrophic failure. So they like tried to isolate it into smaller and smaller groups. And this is like the smallest.
Do you think MAGA are an even number?
I don't even know what that means. Like, what the fuck?
Ben does. Ben got it.
Got what? What is there to get? Do you think MAGA are an even number? Is that what you said?
Yeah, because they're the village of the damned now.
Country of the damned.
The country of the damned. Holy shit.
So I did get it.
If this would have been a huge if this
is what I'm saying.
Franchise. We got 28 days later, we got 28 weeks later, we got 28 years later. Country of the damned.
Ow. Country of the damned. Okay, anyway, so yeah, we were talking about it. And I think I answered most of what my own sort of like understanding of it is, but the janitor comes in and he starts poking him. You guys can talk. I have to go pee.
I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't. Well, he's not wrong.
He's not.
The maintenance guy comes in. He's like, I know what you did. He toys with one of them. He toys with Myrna or whatever her name is. And I don't think that he even intends to do this, but he accidentally. It's not Myrna. It's the other kid. He gives him a little whap on the cheek. On the cheek. And they all go, what the hell? And they do the eye thing. And here's what I noticed about the eyes. They go green first, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why the intensity goes to red other than like that's like kill mode. But evolutionarily, is it like green means you got to stop and red means we're going to kill you?
See, maybe, yeah. I think you're probably right, because when Mara gets her mother to put her hand in the pot of boiling water, it's just the green eyes. But yeah, it seems like whenever the eyes go red, that's like kill mode, like you said.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the method of which Buck Flower, the custodian, kills himself?
Well, it's insane. It's over
the
top.
He kills himself? How?
It's overkill. It's overkill, in fact, because
I was speculating so hard. I'm like, okay, he's going up. He's going to jump. How's he going to do it? I'm like, up the butt? Nah, that's too much. Through the mouth? Oh, that's too goopy and gory.
But it's not too off.
Up the butt, out the mouth.
Happens.
Out the mouth.
He walks. They make him walk backwards up the ladder, first of all, which I thought
looked really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when he gets to the top of the ladder, he's on a roof, and I was like, he's just going to jump off the roof onto the ground. Nope, it's so much worse. He takes the broom and holds it up to his like chest, and then he jumps onto a truck below and impales himself through the chest on a broom on a truck off a roof. And then when they show him, he turns into a dummy for a second. But when they show him like the final shot of him, it's so John Carpenter gruesome. Like it's so like done up to look like an epic kill in like a horror movie. And I thought that was really good. I thought that was a really cool.
It is a horror movie. What are you talking about?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like all of this movie could be done by a different director who does not have the horror vision, and it's the same movie, but all horror of the parts.
Is what I call my nightmares that I have every day.
the guy who got burned, the guy who got burned on the barbecue. Later, when the woman gets burned alive, and Jill goes and gets the like backpack off her, she looks like a little person who's been burned. This sequence,
she looks like the Crypt Keeper. It's very
exactly. But what I'm saying is like. Strange. Yeah, they didn't have to do any of this, but this is John Carpenter, literal master of horror, being like, we have to make these horror moments have some weight, and this is one of those moments. Well, John Carpenter was like, what if we do 9 things? What if we do 7 different things in one suicide?
I'll tell you that this is one of the most tense moments of the movie when he strikes this kid in the face, Robert.
Yeah,
and Robert. He reacts pretty good. Like he doesn't get hit in the face for real, but like the way he just kind of like, and like it hits him, but he doesn't like do like he doesn't grab his face. He doesn't do like a wince or anything. He just kind of like it's almost like in like a superhero movie or something when someone gets punched and it doesn't affect them, you know? And like, you're like, oh, that did nothing. And then they all just immediately stand up. I'm like, oh, you fucked up, Carlton. His name's Carlton, by the way. You can see it's written on his overalls, unless those are from the previous janitor. I don't know. But it's quite threatening. I was nervous. I knew he was going to die, but I didn't know how. And I'm like, how are they going to do it? What are they going to do to it? What are they going to make him do? Because there's never a moment where they like swarm somebody and rip them apart, right? They always get them to do it themselves. So I was curious, and you know what? Not a terrible death. Like it's by which I mean execution. Like it's a crazy death. Like impale yourself on your own mop. That's wild. That's fucking wild.
Oh, it's my favorite death of the movie by far.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them, but yeah,
I kind of do like. I'm glad you brought that up though, because I kind of would have liked to, at one point, see all of these kids who are very calm and stoic and use mind control. I would love to see them at some point go feral and actually
my god, me too.
Rip apart someone.
I feel like there's a version of this movie where David rebels so hard against Mara that he influences the others to like somehow get them to like kill her.
That's how I thought this movie was going to end. In fact, I thought that I thought David was going to influence the rest of them to stand up for themselves, and they were going to like kind of break form a little bit. But it's not what happened.
I was hoping for something like that, but then I looked at the time code and I was like, not enough time for that.
Explosion.
That's just not gonna happen.
My ideal ending for this movie would have been like if Alan did kill Mara, you just see like a weird like glint or glimmer in the eyes of the other kids, and they all just kind of like start walking away in separate directions.
Yeah.
And then that's how it kind of like spreads out and starts anew.
Or they walk off with their pairs.
Or that.
Yeah.
Like there's still something creepy going on, but now they're not part of this like chain anymore. The links have gone. That'd be cool.
Exactly.
So the next segment is sort of like Alan finds the letter from his wife, I think, or I couldn't really tell, but what ends up happening is Myra comes in. It's basically like there's going to be some changes. She says that we are an evolutionary jump, and this happened before in on the Turkey Armenian or Iranian border in a small
she
town.
says at first I thought it was an evolutionary jump.
Right. Oh yes. Okay. Yeah.
She says at first I thought it was an evolutionary jump, but then that doesn't explain the mass pregnancies and all of the people blacking out. And then she says it happened again here, and here. And yeah, this is what we were talking about earlier, where it's like it's happened a whole bunch of times. And then she goes through like several different versions of what it could have been. Immaculate birth, mutation, like you said. And then the government, she pulls like the LSD government.
Could be a government or a possession.
Yeah. I think but even she's like, that is fucking stupid. Like this isn't the devil. And then her final one is Xeno something. Was it? Do you have it written down? Xeno.
I didn't write that down because I think she says that first. And
no, she says it last. It's the one that she believes that it is.
I didn't, but this is when she literally like takes him down. She's like, "Come here, I want to show you something." Yeah. Takes him in the basement.
She believes it's alien. She thinks that it's Xeno insemination, which is like knock everybody out, and then they inseminate them from. You're basically hosts. Like you didn't. It has no part of either you or the mother. It's.
I think the engineers
as an
and
egg.
The xenomorphs could have taken a note from how these aliens do it.
I don't know. I gotta say that the xenomorphs I think are a little more efficient. They barf an egg in your mouth and then like 10 minutes later they have a full grown.
It's true.
Warrior.
Yeah.
These things gotta grow up at a human rate. Ugh.
Right. We do get that moment where Verner takes Alan into the basement, and we see that this is the scene where they show it, and this is like, oh, is this Prince of Darkness? Because what we see is their faces glowing blue, and then a quick shot of
an alien from a Halloween store.
Of the alien. Yeah, exactly.
You know, you go to like Party City or like Halloween Town or whatever.
Halloween.
They have that one prop at the back that's like way better than the rest. That's the quality level of this.
I have one of those in my repertoire that looks exactly like the baby in this movie.
I've seen it.
You've seen it.
It doesn't look exactly like the baby in this movie. It
looks more like a demon, but you know what I'm saying.
This looks like a swollen baby because it's not. Yes. I don't think it's supposed to look like an alien either. It's supposed to like make you think
waterlogged
alien. Yeah,
but even here, we just see a flash of it on the screen.
The flash is meant to make you think it looks like an alien, and then when you see it for an extended shot later, you're like that just kind of looks like a bloated infant that has been in a tube of water for a decade.
Yeah.
How is it not disintegrated yet? I don't know.
This is when like Alan's at home. He finds the girl packing to leave. She also knows that he's been talking to Verner, and the Red Barn comes back into play. And Jill.
Did you guys ever have to dissect like pig fetuses and stuff when you were?
I did a squid and a pig fetus in.
I did a pig fetus and a frog.
Not even regular high school.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Weird.
Just part of the curriculum, you fucking weirdos. Why is that part of the curriculum? How has that helped me in my life other than traumatize me? Or anybody?
Yeah, it should have been an alien.
Yeah, they should have made you do an alien or an actual.
The shadow government was like, okay, these people are going to have to be dissecting aliens a lot in about 30 years, so we have to make sure they know what the biology of
any they're trying to find the future ocean creature or somebody's like creature is. If somebody does it and they're like, this is fascinating, then maybe that person will be more interested in learning about medicine. You know, that's why they do it.
I agree with that. So maybe it's
optional. If I recall, you didn't have to do it if you didn't want to do it.
I had to do
Correct.
It. I don't remember.
I remember
having
high school. They're like, you're an adult now, you can handle it.
In actual high school, when we were watching certain movies, I remember being like, in this movie, they're going to say the N-word. If you need to leave, you can leave. But I was never given the option to not dissect. Like, it was Othello. Like, come on.
Sorry, that was maybe too rude. Sorry, I take it back. Jason didn't.
That's fine. You say worse things to me all the time. She also knows that he's been talking to Verner. Oh, they're gonna move into the Red Barn. Jill's home alone with the kid. Tells him that he doesn't have to do.
I mean, I know where we are in the movie. If you want me to take over, I can.
No, I know. I lost it for a second because of the last part of the conversation. I like the scene with Jill and David where she's basically like, you don't have to do this. And he's like, I don't want to do this. I can think freely outside of them. She's like, well, honey, you're a normal kid. Why are we doing this? Anyway, that night, Ben sees some kids on the road and they stop him in his truck. He wants to bring his daughter home, who's with them, but they make him drive into a gas tank and he explodes. And I know I got through that scene very fast, but that's essentially what happens. Do you guys
crashes into Frank the Tank? He flies off the road, lands into a giant tank that says Frank on it. My reaction was, Frank, why'd you put your tank there? That's a very dangerous tank spot, Frank. Why would you put your fucking Frank tank there, Frank? It is a dumb place to put it. If somebody's zipping down that road at night, drunk, shouldn't be drunk, but at the same time, you're gonna blow up. Put it off to the side.
Ben, I feel like you were trying to say something there.
No, it's such a ridiculous, obvious miniature for the explosion.
Oh, okay.
Of that truck flying into Frank.
Because
you know how you can tell like when they're using miniatures and actual water, like a ship sinking or blowing up in the water, and they're doing a miniature, you can tell by like
the size of the water waves,
the surface of the water.
Yeah,
exactly. That it's just like a toy.
Yeah,
it's the exact same thing with the explosion. Like the explosion is so much bigger than what would actually happen. And if you like slow it down,
I mean, the same as at the house at
it
the
looks
end.
Terrible.
But I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but I've seen worse, is what I'll say. I've seen worse in a John Carpenter.
I know,
movie.
but when you see something like that, and well, yeah, but I erupted in laughter when I saw that, and that means it's not effective. And I feel like
we never talked about our laughter
should have carried more weight.
The first time I erupted in laughter was when we kind of glazed over it, but Jason was talking about when the mom's like, because we talked about like mentally what she's going through, and she's like, I can't, because we're like, she's gonna go to jail if she says it. But then when it like cuts to the daughter and it's like, bang, like the music is just like, bang, like, whoa. Yeah, that was the first time I burst out laughing.
I do think these are like necessary moments in this movie, though, because like it has to have like slasher style moments where the kids are doing kills, and this is one of those. Like there will be a bunch of like exposition, like story happens, and then cut to like the scene stops, cut over to like the kids emerge from the forest and they mind freak the guy into killing himself in an explosion. Like that feels very much like we had to put in like the kills per second of that one Friday the 13th. Yeah. Like they got it down to a science. We have to have a kill sequence now. There's been too much talking. You have to have just like a person has to die in a gruesome way, or this horror movie falls apart. And I disagree with that, because this movie doesn't need that. Like they could have spent more time building the the unknown element of it. They could have spent more time making us scared for things
used
that
up
we
their
weren't
unknown
seeing.
budget in the first 45 minutes of
the
movie.
first 5 minutes.
You gotta start giving us some answers over here.
Yeah. I also agree with that. Right? It's got a lot of disjointed elements, but I think at the end of the day, it's we're having fun talking about it. I think that's not for nothing.
It's got a lot of mid-90s Hollywood elements that don't belong in John Carpenter films. I would really like to have seen an Italian version of this done, because I think,
oh my god,
if you look
or
back
just like
at
a super Italian man in the movie, like,
whoa, no, I just think the story itself lends it more so to the Italian style of filmmaking. Like I think this could have been a really like taut suspense thriller, as opposed to an okay movie with moments that make the audience like burst out into laughter at how ludicrous parts are.
Like if the three of us at our current age had gone to see this in theater, we would have just been laughing the whole time. I think. I
agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I think
that being said, I would probably go see this in theater.
I would go see this in theaters with you guys specifically.
I imagine like people went to go see this being like, John Carpenter, master of horror, and they watched it and they're like, John Carpenter, more like masturbation specialist of getting checks in the mail. What the heck was that? Yeah.
Masturbation specialist of getting checks in the mail is how I feel about John Carpenter's later filmography.
This isn't even his later.
Oh yeah,
this is like his completely. Middle, like nearing the end, but like not quite. He made a couple of good ones after this, but not many. Not many. Also,
he made one good one after this.
That's true.
Vampires.
And Vampires also.
Vampires is campy as hell, though.
I don't really like that one.
I know, I loved it. But like, look at his movies after this. It was Escape from LA, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Then
Mars, bad. The War.
Ghosts of Mars.
Then Vampires. Then Ghosts of Mars and The Ward.
The Ward. The Ward is such a
when
lambasted that
Tarantino
film,
is like,
but this is such a competent movie comparatively.
When Quentin Tarantino is like, it's a young man's game. I want to get out before I outstay my welcome. And like a lot of the time, old directors really kind of like fizzle out, and people just don't want them around anymore. I feel like he's specifically referencing John Carpenter. Like John Carpenter was the man until he made fucking Invisible Man memoirs or whatever.
That movie sucked.
Yeah, it was so bad.
Verner tells Alan to evacuate. Alan goes to the classroom, and the kids say they have to survive. They argue about what it means to coexist and to have compassion. The girl is basically like, we will survive. He has
you're just a pale imitation of a higher life form. Remember when he says that to them? Jeez.
Yeah.
What a shitty piece of dialogue delivered as earnestly as one can, but you just feel ridiculous saying it. Like, how do I deliver this without sounding like a complete douche? The answer is you can't, Christopher.
He utilizes
this is the movie he went out on.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in other movies after this, but he was never the same, if you know what I mean.
Listen, I just want to talk about Christopher Reeve for 1 second as it pertains to this film. I've only seen him in Superman. This is the second thing I've seen him.
I've only seen him in Superman 2
as well,
and 4.
And
it was called Superman also.
Yeah. Superman 1, Superman also, Superman 3 with Richard Pryor.
No, I never really liked the Superman
again.
It was like my dad.
Superman does it. Superman rides again.
When I was a kid, my dad got me into two things. One was Star Wars, and the other was Batman. And he tried to get me into Superman, and I was like, "Superman sucks,
no, thank you.
ass, Dad."
No, thank you.
As I look like this little kid over here, like, Superman sucks ass, Dad. I like Batman and Star Wars.
Superman's
also, the
gay.
boy upstairs told me to burn the grass in the front yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I think the only other movie I've seen him in other than the Superman films was Somewhere in Time. I don't know if you've covered that or not, but it's worth checking out.
And I liked Christopher Reeve's performance, Reeve apostrophe as a performance in this. However, I'm like, Superman's acting weird in this. It seems like a John Carpenter character. He did absorb the ability, like who you could replace this with? Sam Neill would have done a bang up job as the same character as Christopher Reeve.
Kurt Russell
in this.
Russell. You should also say that Christopher Reeve was primarily like a TV person until Superman, and then he exploded for a bit, but that was kind of what he was, right? And then it was a small window before he was on the silver screen and when he had the accident, right? So it's like he didn't have a long time to become. But watching this, I was like, man, imagine he was still around and
he would be
doing weird horror movies now. Like people be casting him as like he was in Village of the Damned. Let's put him in this. And he's like,
do you know how many sitcoms he would have shown up on if he had lived?
I'm sure that he showed up as wheelchair Christopher Reeves in sitcoms. I'm sure he did. I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, but I feel like that's a thing that probably happened, right? Like
I was thinking about that, and I think that Christopher Reeve, if he had lived, as a man who was not destroyed by a horse, he would have been he would just still be working today, When you see Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito reunite for the 9th time and shake hands and be like, "We are brothers," I'm thinking of all the actors that have died throughout history in the last 20 years, 30 years.
Throughout history?
Yeah, throughout all of history.
All those Roman boys who played girls.
And watching this
all those
film,
Shakespearean boys who played girls.
Christopher Reeve has such a weird face, too. He's kind of a.
He has very sharp features.
He's kind of a Robert Redford. he's kind of a man outside of the rules of leading man, because the guy that played Frank at the beginning follows the rules of leading man even to this day. Frank Grillo is another one who kind of follows those rules, but he's always going to be a fucking B movie actor until he just is in the game for so long that he just shows up in the
B
MCU.
stands for bag of meat.
Yeah.
Meat bag actor. That's what I
Meat
call it.
bag actor.
Scott Adkins is one of those too.
Yeah, Scott Adkins is
like
absolutely one of those guys too.
Yeah. If you haven't checked it out, definitely watch Accident Man. But Christopher Reeve, one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt, which is probably my favorite television show ever. He was in the episode What's Cooking. I don't know if either of you have seen that, but he lays into comedy so hard, and he's actually really funny. Highly recommended. But I think he really would have benefited more from sticking to TV. Like Stephen, like you said, known predominantly as a television actor who branched into film. I think if he avoided film at all costs, I mean, you can make an argument for Superman, making him super famous, but he would have had a much more successful career, I think, with television, because I don't think he's really a leading man. He's
a leading man in a John Carpenter film. I will say, I will allow him.
Yeah. Okay.
That.
All right.
I also don't think
give him
he
that
had
amount
enough
of
time
respect.
to get that shake, but he was also old. Like, you know, this movie, he's older.
That's a good point.
Yeah, like he's.
Yeah.
It's not like he was a fresh-faced young Superman Clark Kent coming into movies. It's like he made the Superman movies and a couple of movies here and there, but it was always TV. But I mean, again, I think he's doing all right in this movie. He's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
You guys think that he would have been in Ghost of Mars if he didn't have his accident?
Well,
come on.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Relax,
I'm joking around over here.
I think he might have played, instead of Michael Douglas, he might have been Ant-Man in the MCU.
I could see that.
Cast him in the MCU. No. No. But you know what? They did. Michael Keaton was in the MCU, so maybe they would.
Anyone want to take a guess how old Christopher Reeve was in this movie? Because I think he looks old as hell.
I was gonna say 43.
47.
33.
33?
Fuck completely off. Yeah. Do you know what's crazy? Because he was 33 in 1995.
He was 40. He was 42.
Okay, I said 43.
I said 43.
Holy moly, freaked me out. I'm like, do I have vampire blood inside of me or something?
Listen, if so, in The Flash, which Michael Keaton famously returned as Tim Burton Batman in, he would have just been Superman in that movie also. Because he is technically in that movie as like a CGI garbage version.
Are you
of him.
serious?
What was your point? He would have been Superman in that. He would have been. I hate this.
He would have.
I hate this conversation. That movie wouldn't be made. If Christopher Reeve didn't have his accident, that movie would never have been made.
That movie never gets created.
The entire timeline would have changed.
Michael Keaton never gets to play Batman again because of Michael.
No, we get to blame all of these movies on the horse.
There would have been several more Michael Keaton Batman movies. There would have been several more Michael Keaton Batman movies with Christopher Reeves as Batman, and it would have been a whole different world that we live in. The DCU.
Christopher Reeves as Batman?
No. He would have been there as Superman with Michael Keaton. They would have joined forces together, and we'd have a whole DCU that started in the 90s that would be
Batman versus Superman.
And the
Batman versus Superman.
The MCU would not exist.
Batman versus Superman would have been made in 2000.
And the whole MCU would never exist.
That would have melted my brain.
Oh
my god, that would.
You can't just talk over me.
You can't just talk over me either, though. Man.
I was in the middle of talking, and you just started yelling, and then decided that yours was more important.
I'm sorry, Steve. Listen, Verner talks to Alan, tells him to evacuate. Alan goes to the classroom. The kids say they have to survive. We already talked about this. We will survive. He has a flash of an ocean in his mind. It blocks the kid's telekinesis. What if I deny you? You can't.
I was wondering about this, where it's like he said that, you know, he and his wife would go down there and just like think of the future together, but they would also think about how the ocean is more powerful than either of them could ever be. And this is how I think of the ocean. It's a giant monster that wants to kill you. Like, I don't like the ocean. It freaks me out.
I agree with that. Yes.
Anytime I'm close to it, I don't want to be in it. If I'm on it in a boat or something, I'm like, can we go back? If I'm flying over it, I'm like, please don't let us crash. I'm scared of the ocean. I don't like it. I had a bad experience when I was a child. We'll talk about that another time, maybe. But he uses it as a wall, like an actual ocean wall, to protect his thoughts, which is interesting because if you do, you know, if you have the ability to conjure images in your mind and sound and stuff, you can overwhelm your own thoughts with it if you think about it hard enough, which is interesting. As somebody who has like severe fucking ADHD, where I'm like, I can't shut off my own thoughts. If I start to think of the ocean and the noise it makes and the visuals of it, like it slowly starts to shut things off. I guess
I do like where they go with it. Like, we'll talk about it in a second, but the ocean wave as a tease, I agree with you. I think is a very cool way to sort of like show what the adults' minds are doing when they are blocking, because they don't show Verner's thoughts. They're just like, we can't penetrate.
Well, I mean, we talked about this earlier, where I'm like, I think that was again for our benefit, to be able to let us think about what we would do to try and block people's mind probing from getting into us, right? Which I think is smart, because then you get to this point where they're literally visualizing it for us, and you're like, oh, that's an interesting one. I didn't think of that. That's not what I
shot very specifically and deliberately too, like for what it's supposed to look like, which I think is great.
Oh, this is also a thing where I'm like, I don't know if this kind of stuff was in the original, right? Like, and if not, this is a cool addition if it isn't. Because like, I feel like in the 1960s, they'd be like, just try and think of 4 conversations at once or something, or your favorite song.
Listen, go and watch.
I can't get through your thoughts. You're thinking of that skibbity bibbity toilet again.
Go and watch The Secret Life of Walter Mitty from the 60s. And that movie does so many interesting things. I haven't seen the remake, and the whole point that I watched the original was to watch the remake, but it does a really cool thing where every time he daydreams, it turns into a full, well thought out like movie unto itself. And it really reminded me of the way that it's shown when they're thinking of blocking out the kids. When in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty from the 60s version, when he goes into it, it starts with a little thought that turns into like how your imagination works, and it turns into a whole sequence. There's like musical elements. There's like a swashbuckling on a ship at one point. Like it's really awesome. It's a really cool old timey 60s movie, or 50s, even late 50s, early 60s. And this movie really evoked that for me a lot. In the way they first show the wave. Myrna and David, they discuss the missing child. His development of emotions is disturbing, I noticed. We go to the priest. The priest is in the woods with a rifle. And this is another one of those horror sections when the kids just show up and they make him shoot himself in the head. The angry mob now rears its ugly head. They're out in full force. And the kids get to Verner. There's a showdown with the mob. This is a bunch of stuff happening in succession. There's a showdown with the mob. The kids take Verner down to the freaky stillborn Prince of Darkness lab.
It's not even that freaky though. It's just a regular room. This is the other thing that kind of pissed me off. Is like she goes in the secret door. It's just like another room. Like it's like a storage room. You know, it should be freakier. or more clinical,
Should
or
be like
anything.
a dark lab or something.
Yeah, it's just so boring. And like the jar is just a jar. Like it is like in the high school biology room. Like it just looks like a pig fetus in a jar, where it's like, oh, I thought it was gonna be something like the fucking Prince of Darkness tube, where it's got swirling void energy or something, anything, or it's glowing or something. It's not even glowing.
They also,
guys, it's not even glowing. What the fuck?
It is a little bit glowing. I thought it was glowing blue, in my opinion. They
That's because she put it in that goo that you put barber's combs in or whatever.
It also is freaky because they mind freak her into laying on a slab, and they cut herself open with a scalpel, which is very horror. Also, while this is all happening, the other
got kind of freaked out at this point because I don't like when people have to do shit like this to themselves.
I thought I was gonna have to look away.
Like 127 hours, or like Rambo stitching himself up. Like anytime a person has to like inflict pain upon
Terminator opening his own arm up.
Freaky. Well, Terminator that's not as
they should have gone
robot
full in. I think they should have gone full in on that and actually show something. And make it like a true horror film.
I think they should have showed her cut in half, like from a far shot, even. Like, have her splayed on the table. Yeah. They make the leader of the mob light herself on fire.
It's the leader of the mob. I've been walking through the street.
The others make Verner slice herself open with a scalpel. Alan breaks into a storage space. He gets explosives. The police are now coming. The town is in a state of emergency. So all this chaos, it's going back and forth in the film. All this chaos is happening all at the same time. With the police coming, Alan and Jill head to the school. He tells her about being able to block the kids' thoughts, and he kisses her.
Yeah. Also, they don't head to school. He locks her in the room.
In the school, I thought it was crazy that he kisses her and then locks her in. I'm like, they didn't telegraph this relationship at all. I guess it's
his wife's been dead for 10 years. Her husband's been dead for 10 years. They've been the only source of familiar relation together in any way for 10 years, both raising weird, creepy alien children and in consoling to and from one each other. I think it makes complete sense that he would kiss her. And it's almost more like a reactionary thing. Like I am human, you are human, they're not human. Right. I'm going to kiss you because we're both humans and they're not. Like it didn't feel so much as a like romantic kiss as like a like we're both human and this is a human experience and we have to do this right now because neither of us might be able to do this ever again. So I'm going to do it. And it didn't feel weird to me. It almost felt like the most human thing that he could do, which I liked. I kind of liked it. Like we were watching it and both of us went, whoa. And then I was like, wait a minute, let's analyze this for 1 second. These two both lost their partners 10 years ago and have been raising creepy alien children and probably have not fucked anybody in 10 years. I would probably do this. I would probably grab the person that is like showing any kind of human trust and warmth to me and give them a big smooch on the face and be like, I might never see you again. Goodbye.
Yeah. What are you going to do? And then pleads not to kill David. So he's Alan's basically going to be like, I'm killing them all. And Jill is basically like, that
he's not human. He's not human.
Yeah. David is showing signs of life, though. So here's the part that I thought was really fun. It turns into an action movie. The police show up to the barn. Myrna possesses the first cop into shooting his partner. The rest of the cops start coming.
This is a good part. I like.
And he's like he does like an action Terminator.
It's great.
Walks down, starts killing the other police. And the kids just start making them all fight each other. And each there's like waves of police and then military that come in. And basically the children are making them fight each other in this awesome way, and it really is like a very Terminator-esque action sequence, which is awesome. To one point, Myrna like looks up at a helicopter and just goes bubble bubble bubble, and the helicopter just goes and crashes.
And I have to say too that like these are some of the best gunshots, like gunshot wounds and reactions I've seen in most movies. Like
they've
where,
got
like
good,
the first time
and stuff, like the first shot of the shotgun
everything
through the car.
Oh yeah.
And like it comes out the back of him and stuff. I'm like, that is a well executed gag and like shot well, framed well, everything about it. A+.
That's why it reminded me of Terminator.
Plausible.
Yeah.
But like even when they like control the other cop and like he fires his gun and shoots the other guy in like his shoulder, like they can't control the aim well, but they can convince them to like shoot each other. But like that one shot in the shoulder, the way like the squib bursts and the way he reacts to it, like it looks legit. Like this is a great scene, one of the better scenes of the movie, and I did not expect to see this at all. Like this kind of won me over for the movie as a whole.
Wow, right at the end too.
Anything about this one scene really stand out to you?
I think for me,
it felt like this is a culmination of like.
For me, it was when he turns, like he shoots his partner and then turns around and then action walks, like I said, the Terminator into a bunch of cop cars coming and literally like takes a bunch of them out before he gets taken out, but they're already possessed. And then they start shooting each other. Like it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then like him getting blasted through the car out the other side is like, I don't know. It's just like perfect action movie schlock, but like done in a satisfying way that I'm like, here we go. Like it sets the tone for what's about to occur. And I wasn't prepared for the level of mayhem that was going to follow it. But everything that came, I was like, yes. And then like a fucking prison bus shows up. You're like, what the heck is this bus doing here? I thought that was like
the prison bus.
I thought the bus was like there to pick up the kids. I'm like, is the driver gonna come out and have guns and be like, we gotta get these kids?
It was the bus from Assault on Precinct.
Yeah,
it was the precinct bus.
No, that bus wasn't supposed to show up on set, but they just kept it in the movie. They're like, we killed the driver, so we might as well use it. But yeah, I think that the very first shot of that, and then like Jason said, when he turns and the only thing I think I could possibly think of that would have made that better is when he like looks at the other guy. They could have done like a They Live shot with like the head turn and his eyes would be like glowing, and he's shoots and he's just walking and would have the glowing eyes. Like that would be pretty cool if he's walking around with crazy.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah, I agree with that very much. Jill breaks out of the school. It's bedlam. The soldiers and police are all fighting. Jill gets the keys off the burned corpse, which was another like gross, weird, like John Carpenter-esque thing. Takes the car that's there, and she shows up to the aftermath. And I wanted to ask you guys how you felt about this aftermath shot, because all this stuff happens. It's about 5 minutes of them killing each other, and then cut over to Jill, and she rolls up on literally like 30 bodies and a shootout, just quiet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did. They had the conversation in the school. And he's like, "You can't go there. It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be insane. Like they can't take down the kids. The kids are unstoppable. Don't you know? Haven't you looked in their eyes before?" And then immediately he's like, "But I can do it. Like I can fucking put up a wall of water and stop." So again, like there's a lot in this movie that doesn't make any goddamn sense. But she just wants to save her son.
Well,
because
also,
she is the only one of the parents that has made a connection, right? Like Mark Hamill, the children are evil. Like he raised one of them too, and like he hates his kid. Like there's no. I mean, maybe you could argue that Ben. He wants to bring the girl home because I think her name's Julie. I can't remember, but there's no warmth between any of the parental figures except for David's mom. She's the only one that seems to care, and it's because he's the only one that can show any kind of genuine human emotion, where he's like, he's almost fighting against the Vulcan nature of these kids, because they are basically like weird Vulcans, you know. Anyway, yeah.
Alan
Jason,
goes
you
to
were
teach his
saying
class.
about like how she pulls up and just sees like the aftermath of the shootout. She pays no attention to those bodies whatsoever.
Sorry,
And
that's
she
what
just
my point was, is that
kinda, like,
she knew
gets
it
out
was
of the
gonna be
car
like
and
that.
just like runs towards the barn. If I pulled
Steps
up, if
over.
I was going to rescue my alien son thing, and I pulled up and there was just police cars and a police bus and just bodies littered everywhere, I might take a second to just assess the situation, not just like
I might just
skip
fucking
around
leave
between the bodies and like
Nope.
yeah,
that was sort of the point that I was getting at, was that like he warned her that it was going to be like this, so maybe she's like trying to block it out, because she's like, he did say that it was going to be a bloodbath, and then she gets there and she's like, holy fuck, it is a bloodbath. Instead of like taking it in, she's just like, nope. That's kind of maybe what I would do logically. Like, I wouldn't want to like dwell on the fact that there's 100 corpses around, just like people clinging to life, helicopters.
I don't know if you could
burning
just
in the
shut that
distance.
out though.
I mean, I'm pretty good at shutting things out, but I don't know. Like, also, you know, we're sprinting to the end of this movie though. Like even the movie itself is like, we have to do this long ticking clock thing, but we can't dwell on it too much. But we need to dwell on it enough for it to feel threatening.
Before we even like get to the barn, when she gets out of the car and just starts like running through the bodies, it cuts to that brick wall. I don't know about you two. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I like the end brick wall scene, but like the initial presentation of the brick wall, I thought was incredibly lame, and I thought it really made everything feel cheaper, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
like,
thought
why aren't other people doing it?
I thought that at first as well. And then when it had like the sort of like the sort of like RoboCop squib style stuff going on, I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. I like this now.
Yeah, exactly.
So like initially, yes, I thought that, but then as it went, it got better. Like, you know, if you let it cook or whatever, it's like, okay, it did end up cooking quite well for me, at least.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, same.
But when it first popped up, I was expecting like, you know, like Christopher Reeve to show up and be like, so what's the deal with early pregnancy? Dun 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 dun. Has anybody flown around the world backwards? It turns back time. You know
what's the deal?
But yeah, it looked cheesy for certain. But as soon as those squibs started like powdering it, I was like, oh, I see what they're doing, and I like this. And then especially paired with like, it breaks down, and then the bag, it zooms in on the bag, and the bag does that sort of like the Thing burnout from the middle, like like that looked so good too.
I liked
that's the kind of shit that gets me excited, where I'm like, oh, this is like, because we know we're like sitting there with our twiddling our fingers, like yes.
I like
an hour and a half into the movie, like finally.
Yeah.
I like the brick wall. We're coming to the brick wall bit, and I thought that it was well executed personally, because I like that the way that he figures it out is like, the wave works, but if I literally just think of a brick wall, it works better. And I think that's so funny and so good because of the way that this movie ends. Alan goes to teach the class, and it's very late at night. He tells David to go get the notebook, because he brings in a like briefcase thing, like a bookcase briefcase that clearly has a time bomb in it. And
to
the
us,
kid, you know,
to them,
to us, yes, clear to us.
Because we see him put dynamite and a fucking old timey like alarm clock,
yeah,
Batman style. Like how do I don't really understand how bombs with that style clock on it work, but you know, cartoons have never steered me wrong in the past, so I assume that he.
But from their point of view, it's like he brings in the briefcase. He's ready to teach the class. It's 11:30 at night, also, which I thought was insane. Or approaching 11:30.
Yeah, me too.
I thought that he was there to like arrange their departure. Isn't that what it was?
No, they moved to the barn.
No. They sent him away to arrange for him to get them out of there. That's why he's returning. He's supposed to return with a means for them to escape and to get out into the world, which is why I thought the prison bus was coming, where I'm like, oh, he actually did it.
Oh,
yeah, because I thought he got the bus for them.
No, I didn't pick up on any of that at all. That's good. That's good.
Well, it's not insight. That's just what happens in the movie. So like earlier in the movie,
it's insight.
It's not. It's just the story. They send him. He's there, and he's doing the ocean thing or whatever. And they're like, "You're gonna figure out how to get us out of here, and you have until tonight. We have to leave tonight." So he leaves, and then he makes a bomb and comes back, and he's supposed to be bringing them a means of escape. But I don't know why he needs his notebook. You're right.
It's because it's filled with bombs. I did like the segment where
were
he's
they gonna
like,
go?
Anywhere. They just need to go anywhere. They need
Texas.
to get away from there. Yeah. They're going to go to Texas, where white people are super welcome.
Yeah. Super white people are super welcome.
Yeah.
I do like that it does show him try to save David and be like, "Oh, I forgot my papers."
That's what the notebook is. He's like, "I need my notebook to get the." He doesn't say why. I like it would make sense if he's like, for the phone number for the bus company, even though the bus is outside and it's full of bullet holes now because you guys fucked it up. But yeah, David, go, and she knows. She picks up on
Mara picks up on it immediately, and that's when he puts up the brick wall in his mind because they're trying to get in. She's like, "I can't read your mind. It's a brick wall." I liked the effect of this because it looks like a buckling brick wall. Like it looks like it's buckling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we talked enough about the brick wall, but if you want to add anything more, Jason, go ahead.
Jill is sneaking in the background. She gets David, and they get her with the thought paradigm. They turn to Alan and David. David attacks the main girl, Mara, which is sort of the payoff
David
that
is
we were talking
behind
about
them.
earlier.
David is behind them, and Alan is in front of them. So they're constantly like having to like redirect their powers. Like they're flipping back and forth, and they can't seem to focus. It seems like it's just Mara, right? Like they're moving with Mara. Like we talked about earlier, how she's sort of like the head of everything. She's the mind of the hive mind, and like she can't focus on dismantling him and her at the same time, which is like kind of cool, but at the same time it feels very like Wile E. Coyote at this point, where you're like, okay, this is going full Looney Tunes, where it's like, look over there, no, look over there, no.
But I did sort of like that sequence, and it's a good way to really put it. I do like the way that you describe it there, Steve. I really was focused in on the when they cut back to the brick wall and it buckles and there's a hole being created, and then it cut literally a ticking time bomb, a ticking time clock is happening, and we need like 1 minute to get to the point when the thing explodes, but it dwells on that for so long. And a lot of people would say that like that's too much time to like dwell on that, but I think it's necessary here because they're doing like a telekinetic battle in a lot of ways, where it literally is just like him outsmarting them with one simple move. Doctors hate him, but I do like the fact that they're trying to penetrate it in the center, and it's just this giant wall, and they turn to Alan, and they stagger him, and they penetrate the wall right as the bomb goes off. The people who escape are Jill and David, and Jill and David just escape in a car. And then there's no like fanfare. It's just they escape, and 1 minute later they're driving away in a car, and the credits roll. Like, I thought that was a good way to do that, because I'm one of those people that's like, there's 3 minutes left in this movie. There's not going to be any
seconds left on this.
Yeah. I exploded.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think the telekinetic battle is okay, but like I think they could have done it better. It's to me,
yes, of course.
It's kind of like I said, it's a look back and forth kind of thing, and it doesn't feel as tense as it could, especially when the tense nature of it is that they're basically immobilizing the two adults. David has agency here. Like David could do something, you know, like he has telekinetic powers too. Like let him do something. Like we were talking about earlier, like imagine he severed the bond between some of the kids, and the kids are also like, what the heck, David, stop. And they're breaking protocol from their typical silence or whatever. Or even Robert does something, you know, like, come on. These kids have names. They have. Go ahead.
Have we seen David use any telekinetic powers?
I don't think so.
I think he's the only one who doesn't. I'm wondering if it's because he lost his pair.
True. I guess maybe he just has the empath abilities and the ability to read minds, because we know that he can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He sees what people are thinking, and he knows what they're feeling. But yeah,
so it's a very symbiotic relationship.
We also only really, I mean, we do see the kids do the telekinesis without Mara there, but it's usually the most prevalent when she is, or the most powerful, and she's the one that seems to be like
you're right.
Has the most penchant for violence. Yeah, I don't know. I think the ending is kind of whatever, to be honest. Like, it's not great.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I agree. I thought I wanted more. I wanted more of it, but I think like the climax was the.
But I will say that like
and the police all killing each other. So I think my payoff was that moment, and then we hurtled towards an ending, and 7 minutes later the movie's over, right? So
I think like the idea of the brick wall breaking down and then the leather bag burning away and showing the bomb inside is like a super powerful image that works really well in whatever it is it's trying to accomplish, but everything kind of surrounding it just didn't work as well. Like having it constantly, like there's almost like a full minute around the clock that we're watching. It's like, tick, 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 you know, and I'm like, it goes past the 12 and then past and you're like, how much time is left? Hold on. How many minutes are we waiting for here? Like, it would be way more stressful if it was like, you know, like a 5-minute clock and we knew that. But, you know, this is before the era of digital readouts where we knew exactly how much time was left without having to like look at it and be like, wait, so it's 30 seconds till then, but how many seconds until 5 minutes is done? I don't know. The thing's got to go around the thing a couple more times.
It's rough. I mean, like also Christopher Reeve's face when Mara's trying to like break down the wall in his mind.
Yeah, it's a little.
He looks more and more like Kermit the Frog.
And he is kind of like his own neck is yeah. I mean,
it's not great acting.
Though. As an actor, though, how do you? What are you supposed to do? Like, just hold your breath.
It has to be next to impossible, right?
Yeah, like make all the veins in your head pop out or whatever. Like, I don't know what he's supposed to do either.
Yeah, it's. I say the ending of the movie is my favorite part, but even that is a pretty jumbled mess. I think you could agree with that, right?
Sorry, the what part? The whole end, or what do you mean?
The ending.
The ending,
like
it feels like I'll tell you the exact moment that it becomes a jumbled mess for me, and that is when Luke Skywalker shoots himself. That is almost the exact moment that I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then the whole movie just goes bananas. Like the town is now like lighting torches and shit. I'm like, what movie? Like, where do they get these torches from? Like, you know, they have like old timey Frankenstein equipment.
Great question.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a town. They have guns and shit. Why do they have torches for? You guys don't have flashlights? What are you gonna do with the torches?
It just
It's
turns
not
into
like
it's like Halloween Kills was an homage to this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the idea was that
But
they're gonna throw the torches onto the barn and burn the barn down. But like, light those when you get there. Don't like march through the town to a building of psychics that can see you from a mile away and make you light yourself on fire. Like, sneak up and light it sneakily. What are you, insane? That's the other thing that really bugged me. Is like,
really
how could a Splinter Cell team take these kids out easily? Probably, right?
Yeah. And it felt like this movie took an hour and 20 minutes to slowly build to a clusterfuck of an ending that just throws shit at you all the time.
And I mean, the ending has some good shit in it.
When you start,
not enough.
It does. But then when you're like, you finally process the mess you just witnessed, they roll credits. You're like, well, now what?
Now what?
Like, I don't feel like this movie really has much of a resolution.
It doesn't. And the ending of the movie is like, it's almost like a Big Trouble in Little China ending, but like way less satisfying.
Exactly.
And also, like, what are the implications of that kid surviving? Like, is that kid just gonna like become a teenager, go through puberty, and now if he impregnates another person, does this sequence start all over again? Does he finally find his pair? You know, like he has a sister now, and it all begins again. Who knows? Do we want to?
The movie asks so many questions and gives absolutely no answers.
Previously on Lost.
Exactly, right?
That's my Lost intro.
Same. Do we want to talk about our Home Alone of it all, our final thoughts and our ratings? Because I think we can get into sort of our final ideas in there.
Oh shit!
If you had to pick one, what do you think the Home Alone of it all? Is the Home Alone of it all? Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone? I really gotta know. When is the Home Alone of it all? What is the Home Alone of it all? Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
So this is interesting because I think this movie has a true discussion for final thoughts and a Home Alone of it all. I'll just say the idea of the Home Alone of it all is when Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint on the table. He's about to take down his adversaries in a horrible nightmare of tricks and traps. But most movies have that. Like, most movies have that ability to get you to a point where you want to see the outcome. And I think this film has, from my point of view, has a very specific Home Alone of it all. But Ben, you've been here 92 times at this point. I'd like to ask you about your Home Alone of it all, your final thoughts, and your rating, because I think that you could provide some good insight on that front.
For me, the Home Alone of it all is the kids. Like, I mentioned before, you can't have kids as a main focus of a movie that is so serious, so it can't be dealt to children as a children's film, and adults will never really resonate. Although Stephen brought up being like, parents will always like focus on their children, right? But these kids are almost autonomous, and I find that it's so incredibly flawed, but you know where they're going with it. So, like, as soon as the movie starts and then the blackout happens and then everybody wakes up and these women are pregnant, you're like, okay, it's the kids. The kids are born. And then you already know what's happening before it happens, right? So you want to say blueprint, you already have, like, the finished diagram of everything that's going on. But it falls apart. Like, it's like a shoddy foundation. So it doesn't matter how strong the acting is or the direction is, the story itself is so flawed that it won't succeed. And like we've talked about strong points of like acting, of scenery, of filmmaking itself, but when your crux of the tension and suspense of your film doesn't work, your movie doesn't work. And that's what happened with Carpenter's Village of the Damned remake. That being said, as much as I like to pick it apart, I really did enjoy a lot of it. It was a fun watch. It was really campy. It was 90s horror suspense at its prime, very much like Full Moon Features. It's not good, but you still love it for some reason, even if you can't describe why. As far as a rating would go for it, like I can't even really recommend this movie to people, but personally, I think it is one of Carpenter's worst films. Yet at the same time, I'd probably give it, I'd say like 7 out of 10 damn children.
7 out of 10 damn children. All right. Wow, that deserves a clap.
Yeah, absolutely. It deserves the clap. We all have chlamydia now.
Oh, is there a shot for that now?
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. You're welcome back anytime you'd like to come. How about you, Steve?
So like Ben, I don't think that this is his strongest suit when it comes to directing a movie, and I can tell that he didn't care that much about it at the end of the day. But when it comes down to it, there's enough John Carpenter in this movie for you to be aware that you're watching a John Carpenter movie, and you get flashes of certain other things. They're not necessarily the best things that you're getting the flashes of, but they're there. And I like the vibe. I like the cinematography. I like the lighting. I like that sort of like gray pallid, the color palette that we're going with the kids, and then having like the contrast with the green eyes, red eyes, all that kind of stuff like makes me excited. I also, like we said a bunch of times, the first like 15-20 minutes of this movie is so goddamn compelling for like to set up something so interesting that you are giving the movie such leeway based on that setup that you're expecting something great and it doesn't pay off. And even in the middle, you're still kind of hopeful. You're like, that beginning chunk was great. Like maybe by the end they're really gonna turn it around here. But really, they're like, no, it's just gonna be like a Terminator ending, and then everything blows up. And you're like, okay, all right, well, they didn't stick the landing, but that fucking beginning inning was great to watch. I don't know if I'm glad that I stuck around for the whole game, but here we are. I think that there is potential for this story, though. Like, I would not be opposed to somebody trying this again and in a different way.
Yeah.
With the ideas that we kind of played around with throughout the discussion. Like, I would love to see a version of this movie where it's Mara versus David at the end, and the kids go feral on Mara and just rip her apart, and then they wander off in the wood. Like, that's cool. Yeah, but like,
that'd be amazing.
It's really easy to go back and try and rewrite stuff that's bad, right? Like, but I don't know. It's one of those ones that you want to be better than it is, but at the same time, I wasn't having a bad time while watching it. I definitely chuckled at the wrong moments a few times, but I appreciated a lot of the stuff that I was meant to appreciate as well. So I can't say that it's his worst movie. It's definitely nowhere near close to his best movie, but it floats somewhere in there. I'd like to bring up my chart again to figure out exactly where it lies. I think it's probably just below Vampires. Wherever Vampires lies on the list, it's just before that. And like, and that's a real floaty. Like, I could maybe put this above Vampires. Like, I don't like Vampires. But I also like Vampires, Ben. That's what I'm saying. Is like, I like Vampire. Good, like, good. It's like a thing where, like, while I'm watching it, I'm having a good time, but I'm like, I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie.
And I think for my... Oh, I didn't give it a Home Alone. My Home Alone of it all is probably The Hand in the Pot. The Hand in the Pot is the moment where I'm like, this movie's scarier than I thought it was. I didn't think it was going to be this freaky, but it never lives up to that again. Like that's the moment that I was like, I'm here for this, but it's maybe going to be way freakier than I thought it was going to be. But it never gets that freaky again. Like not even close. You know, that was a exceptionally well executed setup, payoff, and disturbing moment for a horror movie. And my rating is this. I'm gonna try and do my best this kid face.
What the fuck?
Okay. Did it work? I couldn't see because I was looking in the camera.
It did. It did absolutely work.
That's good. That's very good. Very, very good.
Oh my god. That was very, very funny. My Home Alone of it all this week was after the kids grow up, the last part of the movie. My Home Alone of it all this week is actually the shootout when it becomes a weird action movie for no reason. I loved that the most, but I think that the segment of it kind of reminded like the way this movie progresses is a lot like we did Jumanji last week. It reminds me of Jumanji, where there's a bunch of stuff at the beginning that doesn't really pertain to the main plot, but once the kids grow up, it's like they started playing Jumanji. They started to really become the focal point of the film. And I really like the moments where they're walking in single file. I think that's really interesting. I think that's fun. My final thoughts are this. This was a pretty good return to form after watching some of Carpenter's
Return of the Jedi. Because
this is my Return of the Jedi. No, this is a good return to form after watching some of Carpenter's later stuff that all kind of happens around the same time, but is not as good from a Carpenter standpoint. Those movies don't really feel like him. Even Escape from LA almost borderlines on starting to not feel like him. This feels like In the Mouth of Madness from my point of view. I got the vibes back from the films like Mouth of Madness and Prince of Darkness. I think everything holds up pretty well for such a wacky premise. Great to see Christopher Reeve and Kirstie Alley in a film like this. I like the effect of the kid's eyes glowing. Like I know that's such a simple thing.
too, though. I really do. It's so good. Like when, especially the noise that it makes as well. It really helps. The crazy sound effects, like
Oh, Hypnotoad.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's been a long time on this show since I've had a good time watching a film, and that's not to say that like the last 8 weeks haven't been great. You know, like it was Steve's birthday month, all of the movies were great. Then before that, my birthday month, all the movies were fine. But I haven't felt this like, hey, did you see this one feeling on this show for a while, for 2 months, because of how much the movies that Steve and I selected meant to us. This is the first time in 2 months that this has been truly like a movie that we selected to do. We had our best pal Ben on to talk about, and we got to really be like it's also special that none of us hadn't seen it or hadn't seen it in a really long time. Like it really, and you know, and to connect it to the John Carpenter of it all, I've been looking forward to watching this movie and talking about this movie for months and months. Like even before our last John Carpenter month, I knew this was coming up. We booked this even before our final John Carpenter month. So this is very special to me in that way as well, because we got to sort of do a kind of a fresh, like a reset on the show, which I really love. I give this movie a 3.2 out of 5. That's how I honestly feel. Like I liked it a lot. I know people aren't going to like it as much as I did. Obviously, we talked about it for the last 3 hours, but also like I genuinely enjoyed this movie. I give this film a remake of a classic I haven't seen, but assuming it's better.
Yeah.
why don't we plug the old proverbial plug into the wall?
All right, let me just see if I can.
All right, let me just plug this in right here and.
Well, he's dead. That's horror, actually. That sting is horror.
I've been writing a horror movie about the plug guy. It's going to be great.
I love it. I'm into it. Ben.
Yes.
What do you got going on? What do you got to tell us about?
Well, with a lull in the film industry here right now, I've been able to get back with Sandro and start recording more episodes for the BS Bargain Bin on YouTube. You can get Spotify, Apple Music, anything like that, anywhere you can podcasts. And we've been doing a lot of great stuff lately. Friday the 13th is coming up, so we will be doing Friday the 13th Part 3. 3D will be our next episode. Probably my favorite of the Friday the 13th movies, but we have a massive back catalog
when
episodes,
Jason's playing a trombone,
there's some great ones on there. So I just ask anyone, if you just want to see two idiots talk about lost film or like some really great old horror and action movies, check it out. But that's what we have on the go right now. So I'm really happy to continue this, and we've got some really fun stuff coming up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool,
awesome.
man.
And I would like to point out that, like, if you guys hadn't taken the couple of breaks that you've taken, we have the same amount of episodes, basically. And I also want to put over BS Bargain Bin, because we didn't influence each other on doing movie podcasts that are basically in the same vein. But as I previously mentioned,
Jason likes to think that only two fucking movie podcasts exist.
No. But the reason I bring this up is because we literally, Ben and I started our podcast at like the same time in like 2019, and we didn't consult one another, but they turned out to be very similar shows. And I fucking love that. And I love guesting on your show, and I love you guesting on our show. Why don't you have Steve? Why don't you have Steve on once in a while? Get him on.
I'm totally down for that. Definitely.
Yeah, bring me on. I can talk about Friday the 13th Part 3. I love the
Michael Myers.
I love Michael Myers. No, I love the convenience store gags at the beginning where the guy's like secretly drinking and eating all the donuts and shit. I like
that. God, yeah.
And she's like, where the hell are you? And she's got like a 2x4 that's like going by the camera, and then the guy like holds up the eyeballs to the screen. I like
the yo-yo.
That's great.
Yeah, the yo-yo going into the fucking camera. Oh god.
Yeah, fantastic. But Ben, thank you for coming on.
Wasn't that one directed by like a pornographer too? He's like,
yes.
yeah, go on.
Oh, more than likely.
Yeah.
Ben, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're obviously you're welcome.
Well, we have no more we have no more Carpenter left, but we'll find something else for you, I guess, because you've been on for almost specifically and only Carpenters, I think, right? Haven't you?
A lot of them.
A lot of them, yeah.
You have
but he's my guy.
Yeah. You have the Hated to See This one, Guinness Book of World Records, 3 in a row, John Carpenter.
That's the book that Jason rests his Guinness on when he's drinking it.
Yeah.
He's like,
and I hate Guinness. I fucking hate Guinness. I only drink it when I'm thinking about Ben coming on our podcast. But thank you, Ben. We'll have a good conversation about this soon. Steve, what do you have cooking on your stove and potentially on your back burner?
Oh, nobody wants to hear about my whole back burner, believe me. But I am still doing the Darth Theorist series on Darth Theorist, the YouTube channel, where I do all the narration and all the voices. I do some writing here. I do some editing there. It's really fun and cool. And we just hit 40,000 subscribers, which is really, actually, I think we hit 41 today, which is pretty cool.
Congrats.
We're growing every minute. We also have a Discord as well. So if you look it up on Discord, it's just look for Darth Theorist on Theorist or on Discord, you'll be able to find it. where we've got some fun conversations going on in there. I also do the Three-Eyed Theorist, which is the same concept except with Game of Thrones, where I also do all the narration and all the voices. If you want to hear me struggle my way through like a northern east accent of the UK, being like, "You go into the wall." I do much better than that on the show, I swear. There's also Stanland, which I've mentioned a couple times in the past. I do various voices on that, but it is a comedy podcast series that is scripted and fun, and it's starring John Hamm and Bobby Moynihan and John Waters and a bunch of recognizable names and celebrities. And I'll be there just to be like, "Rawr," I'm being an orc or whatever. But I'm excited to see what the reception is when it finally launches. And then I have one blooper that I can play for you from Darth Theorist today. Let's play it, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. This is my blooper.
Padawan who stands against us is a traitor to the Republic, and that was my stomach. Sorry.
One more time. It happens a lot.
That's excellent.
That's
Look,
great.
you put in the fucking beep. What a good moment.
I don't know if there's like kids in Discord, so I had to bleep my curse words.
Well, thank you, Steve. You're my partner in crime in all of this, and I appreciate you being a part of this every week. This is a great podcast. Speaking of this podcast, you can find us right here on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch each week, at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. It's really the place to be. I have locked in on Sunday mornings as when our on-demand videos go up, and the audio-only version of this podcast. So you can find that on Sunday morning. I've been doing a push of reels and TikToks for the show, so you can find clips from our old episodes across social media. I am the announcer for the wrestling promotion here in Tremana, here in Toronto, called Super Kicked Wrestling Rock Show. We had a show last week on the 30th of May. We have one coming up on the 27th of June. I don't really know what the premise is yet because it's a month off, but I'll be there as the announcer. I'm the greatest announcer of all time to ever do it. In addition to that, we have merch. I'd like to let everybody know, Steven Boba Blackfly Waters, Stephen Illich, if you will, has drawn all of these images. The Grimoire of Familiar Killers, which we are back in the Lost Pages. I would love to see a Lost Pages version of this if you ever get around to it. We also have Kill Aid from our Friday the 13th series. We also have Twinkerbell. We also have Zardos, where you at, brother? And also the Howie Mandela effect. And just to keep up appearances and just to keep the joke going, Corporal Tunnel Syndrome, which will get released as soon as Twinkerbell has one person buy one shirt. So in addition to that, here's the thing. I would like to, Ben, look, I know you hate this. I know you hate this so bad. But there's one question that needs to be asked each and every week, and I would love for you. It's my birthday. I would love for you to ask this question right now. Please.
Hey, did you see this one?
I'm excited to see what I actually look like when I'm staring at the camera. You guys are laughing real hard at it.
Dude, it looks so good. So good.
So good.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing it.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.
They say taco. They say chicken. They say taco. They say Trump always chickens out. They say taco.